across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. Welcome along just after 4 o'clock. I have to share the honesty of this studio. I've walked in here and the light is shining that brightly I can't see, and now I feel that I've moved it so much that I feel I'm speaking to you from a temple of doom. But anyway, good afternoon. Welcome to Talk. The home of free speech and common sense. Delighted to have your company. Thank you to Ian Collins. Back tomorrow afternoon, of course, between 1 and 4. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I woke up this morning and I rang Ryan. Now, I didn't roll over and touch him on the shoulder. I rang him and I said, tomorrow's going to be turgid, isn't it? The spring statement. We're all going to be like, oh, God, how do you make 3 hours of television and radio out of that? I thought today might be fun. It started off brilliantly. Congratulations to Mike Graham. What a great interview with Kemi Badenoch this morning on Breakfast. If you didn't see it, the new leader of the Tory party finally showed up, I have to say, showed up here at Talk and came up with a few lines. She said that Rachel Thieves, or Richard III as I call her, should be sacked. She said that the Tories are now open to fracking. Drill, baby, drill. That makes sense. More of that coming up, actually, because I want to talk about the impact that her words this morning might have. And congrats again to Mike. There's so many wonderful stories out there. You might have heard this story about Labour. Slave labour, as we're calling this. I've heard people talking about it today. Labour would be turning a blind eye to slavery. Imagine if it blocks a bid to ban ministers from buying solar panels feared to be made by forced labour. This is MPs warning last night. It's interesting because so many Labour MPs are now saying that this government of ours that promised to govern differently and behave honourably are in fact just even worse than the lot before. It's interesting. I think there's so much stuff today. Rachel Thieves, of course, she's caught up in another freebie row, more free tickets. Civil servants, this is another great story today, have been given a gadget limit, OK? You know when we got about nobody's got any money and we're all skint? Apparently taxpayer-funded splurges on iPads is so out of control, right? Out of control. Thousands being bought by civil servants, most of whom shouldn't have a job in the first place, that it's got to the point where somebody in government needs to say, could you stop spending money? We haven't got any. Extraordinary. I will salute this. Mandatory gender testing in athletics. Good. I still get goosebumps when I remember Trump saying there's men and there's women. There can be nobody in the world who thinks it's OK for a bloke transitioning to a woman to take part in female sports. It just doesn't make sense and it isn't fair. And finally, some sense in that. And that story that I don't pretend to understand. Share it with me, my friends. Non-Muslims could be victims of Islamophobia. It seems we are now living in a world where we want to make excuses for almost anybody, whilst the real people of the United Kingdom are struggling, and I mean struggling. We are going to start today with a gentleman who doesn't usually turn up too often because he's either very busy or I don't know what. But when he does turn up, it's a decisive moment. Former deputy chair of the Tory party would be... Oh, he's here. Jonathan Gullis has arrived, ladies and gentlemen. How are you, sir?
I'm all right, mate. How are you doing?
Where have you been? Have you been auditioning for Snow White, the remake? What's going on?
I'm far too straight, white and male to be allowed to be in Snow White, Jeremy. You know that.
I think this is the only place where if you're straight and white and male, you can get a job, but that's another story. Now, let me just start with your new leader. I know you're a fan of Kemi Badenoch. I've been quite critical in that, and I'm being honest, I haven't heard a lot, and I've been told repeatedly by Tories, Kemi's getting her head down trying to work out where we went wrong, and she wants to be careful before she says things. She pitched up this morning with Mike. Let me just play you what she said about Rachel Thieves, who me and Mike have renamed Richard III. Have a look. This is Kemi Badenoch on Mike's Morning Glory. Have a listen.
I think in any other field, she would have. But I think she's actually one of the best that they've got on the Labour bench.
That's bad news,
which is what's really sad. That if she goes, we're likely to get someone much worse. You listen to Labour backbenchers, and a lot of the things that they ask for are completely crazy. They would bankrupt the country tomorrow. But I do think that she's out of her depth. But being the first female whatever is not an achievement if you're doing a bad job.
No.
And it's the people that you're working for that should give a verdict on whether you've achieved something or not.
Yeah.
And the mistakes that she made in that budget are what she's trying to fix now with the emergency budget that we're getting tomorrow. This is not something that's reacting to world events. She made errors, problems have been caused, and now she's going to try and fix them again tomorrow.
Jonathan, I think that anybody with respect can look at Rachel Thieves and assume that she hasn't done the best job. She took over a country, for all of its problems, that had the leading economy in the G7. That's one of the things that the Tories left that was in good hands. They talked about growth, and we seem to be on a backside, unable to even finance the interest on the debts that we've got. Kemi's very calm. I'm going to be really honest about Kemi Badenoch. I think she's a nice lady and probably a good politician. Does she have the oomph, Jonathan Gullis? Because I know it's not probably people will go, what are you talking about? Does she have the charisma to lead the Tories out of the wilderness? Every time I see her, I'm not that convinced. I'm just being honest. I could be wrong.
No, look, Jeremy, I think your criticism has been fair, that I think Kemi has not been as present on the media airwaves and out in the public as much as I'd like her to have been initially. However, what I will say is she does have an abundance of personality, and actually what I want to see is more of that natural personality come out. And I think at PMQs, for example, I feel like part of that is she's overthinking the questions, and actually she's at her best when she's on the back foot, when she's responding to confrontation. She does have a very feisty personality in the positive sense, not in the way that...
Well, this is what I was going to ask you, because a lot of her critics, when she got the job and when the campaign was on, were saying she's actually bloody difficult to work with. She's quite feisty. She puts her foot down. She upsets people. I just wonder whether this whole approach is not natural, and it's been a bit I'm holding the reins in here. I'm making sure I don't put my foot in it. Maybe Kemi Badenoch needs to just show, as you say, her real personality. I mean, for example, the other thing that she talked about Rachel Reeves. Nobody anywhere can think that Rachel Reeves is doing a competent job, can they? Let's be honest. Tomorrow is absolutely, as Kemi Badenoch said, to rectify the disaster of October. And the number one disaster of October was, we want growth, but we're going to screw any business that's small or medium sized. That's a fact.
Well, I'm sure Margaret Thatcher was called a bloody difficult woman to deal with, and I want Kemi Badenoch to be that same type of leader, because ultimately it's awkward people, difficult people who challenge those who work with them and around them that drive the best results. You don't become successful by just towing a line, by being Mr. Nice Guy or Mrs. Nice Guy all the time. And as you say, Rachel Thieves graced her presence in Stoke-on-Trent yesterday, but I tell you what, Stoke-on-Trent Labour kept that one quiet. They weren't keen to wave the flag around, because as you say, what do we know what she's done since her Halloween budget continues to haunt the great British public? We see debt up, borrowing up, inflation up, taxes up, energy prices up despite promising to cut them by £300, jobs lost, pensioners freezing and family farms closing. This is the disaster of this current Labour government, and tomorrow is simply about Rachel from accounts fiddling the figures to try and cover up her mess and restore a black hole that she herself has created by over-borrowing to a massive degree, by over-promising and failing to deliver on those promises, and ultimately, as you say, talking down the economy so much that doom and gloom has spread, sadly, across the sectors.
The problem, and you know, we're mates, but I'm always straight on the show. The problem that you lot have, and I'm being completely serious, is that you must sit there, Tories, and think, this is a disaster, and they're only in because of our bloody incompetence, because we've repeatedly said this, you and I. The British public stopped listening. I can't believe... I mean, I said it yesterday. I genuinely... I'm not into saying that things are going to happen very quickly, but I do believe that all politicians, Jonathan, of all sides, right, need to wake up and realise that I mean, if you look at Trump, right, whatever anybody says about the orange man baby, and there's plenty of flaws... I want a politician, be it Kemi Badenoch, Jonathan Gullis, Keir Starmer, I don't care, right? I want somebody to stand up and say to the British people, and I said it yesterday, right, this is what I believe in. I believe in low taxation. I'm going to make you richer, prouder, safer, and I'm going to make this country more prosperous by not allowing people to have the very things that you lot have paid for. I don't care what anybody tells me. I think that would resonate with millions of people across this country. We have a dearth of politicians in my mind who are almost too scared to lose their job so they don't do their bloody job. I want somebody to stick their neck on the line like Trump and say, do you know what? I don't care if you try and take me legally, you try and slag me off in the newspapers, there's a vendetta. I believe, and Thatcher was the last example. I said this yesterday. Margaret Thatcher said that great line, you can turn, I'm not turning. And if you disagreed with Margaret Thatcher and the Tory party in the 90s, you got sacked. Of course, by 19, whenever it was, the 400, there was 399 in the room who had been sacked, and there was her, and they got rid of her. But in those 10 years, you felt that there was a leader, whether you loved her or you didn't agree with her, I don't know, that stood by what she believed in. And I don't see that conviction anymore. I don't, and so I'm just being honest, I don't see that in Kemi Badenoch. I don't see it in Starmer. I see accountants-based people who listen to, you know, focus groups and, oh, who will I upset less? I want conviction. Make mistakes, but be honest about it.
So look, Jeremy, I think you know I'm one of the most outspoken people when I was in Parliament, because like you say, I had belief and courage in my convictions. My granddad told me that if you want to work in politics one day, then be willing to take on the punches that will be thrown at you, because if you believe that you're right and what you stand up for, then the silent majority will always be with you. And I will say that, look, let's be frank, the most genuine, authentic character out there is Nigel Farage in terms of personality. But I will say this, Kemi Badenoch is a very principled politician. Believe me, I've been in some rooms where I asked her, for example, about should we lift the ban on grammar schools. And she came back when she was running for leader back in 2022, in a time when you expect everyone to say everything you want them to say to you. And she said, at this moment in time, absolutely not. That should be off the table. And in a room of very like-minded individuals, that was a brave thing to say, because ultimately that would have maybe lost with some colleagues at that time in the room with her. So I think the fact that she was brave and bold enough to do that and say that to my face in a private meeting says that when she knows what her plan is, when she knows where she wants to go direction-wise, she's going to stick to it. But like you say, what we need her to do is show more of that personality, more of that pizzazz, which I know that she has, but we need to see it more.
She needs to before it's too late, because I know this isn't a popular... I don't think she's got that long unless she does something and moves the dial. Now, today, in that talk exclusive with Mike, here's the thing. She said they could support a lift on the ban on fracking. This is Kemi Badenoch with Mike this morning. Have a listen.
A lot of people think that we should be fracking, but I also know that many communities don't want it where they are, that it causes problems for them. We need to make sure that we've got local consent for things like that, not just imposing it. So how do we make sure we've got a plan that goes across the board, that works, that is not going to bankrupt us? That's what I'm working on now.
You see, there again, and I know it's hard, and I know that my approach is quite idealistic, right? Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill, JG, and if you get in the way of him, he'll take you to court or he'll sue you or he'll shut down your business. Now, people think that's absolutely appalling. But is it? She's still sat on the fence there. Explain to me. I want a politician to explain, but try you, right? Explain to me why we've got a government in power who are trying to screw farmers to the point where they steal their land to build wind farms who might or not be having solar panels made by slaves. We all know that that's not going to create enough electricity. So we then know that the government will have to import it, which will make our bills go up. Why are we not, as a society, able to say... I use housing as another example. We need houses. Build the bloody houses, find areas. I don't care. They're a brown, what do they call it? Green zones, brown. I don't care. There must be places we can build bloody houses on, right? I don't believe there aren't. Same thing, underneath our ground, we've got stuff that would give us money. We wouldn't have to import it. Drill, baby, drill. Oh no, we'll upset the environmentalists. Tough. And he said titty. I have said it now. Tough. We're at a point as a country where we seem to spend so much time excusing the inability to just do something. I want action from my... Do you understand what I mean by that? Frack, because we've got it under the ground. It's a resource, for God's sake.
So, Jeremy, Trump has obviously decided, very rightly so, that in America, what's the best way to bring down household bills to make sure people aren't poorer? Cheap energy. And so you are right. We should be we should not be apologising. We should be drilling in that North Sea for all the oil and gas. And with fracking, look, it is contentious, and Kemi is right, in my opinion, to look at it, but come up with a solution that's best. Now, my opinion would be, if there are companies that will be making lots of money from fracking, then the communities around that fracking centre could have their energy bills subsidised or indeed paid for directly as a gift for those for allowing the fracking to take place. That is a win for those individuals with their household bills. That's a win for the great British public in terms of getting cheap energy from out under the ground. And then double down on nuclear, small modular nuclear reactors. Why is Ed Miliband not talking about that? As you say, I represented in Stoke-on-Trent the ceramics industry. We use gas. Solar panels and wind farms are not going to burn fire in the kilns to create pots and pans, and electric kilns simply don't produce the product at the same quality, and hydrogen kilns are still in the test phase and may not well be safe enough to have in built up communities.
Let me try something, right? Let me try something to the audience. Peeps, do you support fracking? Just hear me out 1 second. It's like housing. All these politicians get very sanctimonious. We need more houses, not in my constituency. Well, yes, it might have to be in your bloody constituency. Fracking. Are we beset by this desire to do right environmentally the whole time to the detriment of our finances? Or do we need to make a decision like Trump and go, what? We're going to drill. What do you make of that? 0344 499 1000, the usual telephone number. Our Jodie's here. You can send a WhatsApp message on the same number. 0344 499 1000. Get your call in now. Text us. Do you agree with fracking? Is it worth it? I think it's absolutely worth it. 87222. Oh, we'll have upset the friends of the earth. I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, 87222. Friends of the earth. Just eat some spinach and leave me alone. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Do you support fracking, JG?
I'm certainly willing. Yes, I'd be willing to do it. But as I say, you'd have to have those right incentives because unlike America, we haven't got the same landmass. So as I say, if you can come up with a way that people who would be directly impacted by fracking nearby could have their bills subsidised heavily or indeed paid for, then let's crack on with it. Let's use every energy resource we have in our power and within our reach as a nation so we're not reliant on the rest of the world. And let's get rid of this notion that somehow tons of solar panels is somehow going to power this country and loads of wind farms are going to power this country by themselves. Are they part of the energy mix? Yes. Should we be doubling down on them solely? No. And Ed Miliband needs to stop trying to kiss the backside of Greta Thunberg and focus on what the British people want. They promised to cut energy bills by £300, and yet since they've come into power, we've had increases in energy bills by around £300.
I think that so much of what Labour has said is a lie. And the way they went to the farmers' conference and lied to farmers, the way they're trying to grab their land to instigate this ridiculous...
Jeremy.
And I was... Hear me out. I was listening to Mike the other day. Here's the truth about net zero. Just get your environmental head off a minute. And the Tories... I'm a big fan of Boris Johnson, or was. It started there. The truth of the matter is, this ridiculous belief that we can be net zero by 2050, whilst the rest of the world, frankly, doesn't give a toss, is going to further bankrupt the United Kingdom. People need to wise up. North Sea oil and gas under the sea is ours and it's worth money. Utilise it, for Christ's sake. And this, you seen this story today about Miliband? Labour will be turning a blind eye to slavery. What does that mean? If it blocks a bid to ban ministers from buying solar panels feared to be made with forced labour. MPs warned last night. Peers has sought to stop taxpayers' cash from being used to buy products from a company where there was credible evidence of modern slavery. But again, all the morality of Ed Miliband goes out the window. He wants to build his solar panels. He believes he's going to change the... I think he's a dangerous man, by the way. Dangerous man. Dangerous man.
So Ed Miliband and Bridget Phillips are the two most dangerous ministers, I think, in this government. And as you say, with the slave labour element, why would Ed Miliband not want, for example, the UK to manufacture our own solar panels so we can actually create jobs in our country and have UK-sourced type materials? Why are we relying on China, and let's be frank, an enemy of ours, who will have access to our technology and our infrastructure by installing these type of things? And as you say, are using slave labour. It's the hypocrisy again. If the Conservatives were doing this, Labour would be going potty on their side.
Well, it's really interesting, actually. I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. You think about it. Labour talked about cutting benefits. The Tories tried to do that. We are going to kill all the poor people, is what was said. They tried to increase defence spending. We haven't got the money. Of course there's hypocrisy, and it must be very, very frustrating. Can I just throw out the ultimate story? I don't want to see Ed Miliband. It makes me... I can't never see a picture of that man without thinking about that poor bacon roll. Can I throw out... I need you, Jonathan Gullis, you're an elected member of Parliament, to explain this to me, because although I'm 60 soon, I don't understand it. This is according to our new Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner. People mistakenly identified as Muslims could be victims of Islamophobia under her new definition. Her department oversees community relations and has today proposed that other faith groups who could be perceived as Muslim will be covered by her planned new definition for Islamophobia or anti-Muslim hatred. This could include atheists. It could include Sikhs, Hindus, Jain and Buddhists, according to the terms of the reference for a new working group she set up to advise ministers and draw up a non-statutory definition of Islamophobia.
Blasphemy laws, Jeremy, are dangerous. Religion is something that people are willing to believe or not believe in. I myself am.
We're going to make a new law to support my Jewish friends whose kids get abused in the street? No, of course we're not going to, are we?
Well, this is the problem, Jeremy, isn't it? Once you introduce blasphemy laws, you mean that anyone who starts to criticise another faith, whether it's nicely said or not, but are we really going to arrest people for criticising other faiths? You can think someone's stupid. You don't have to arrest them and criminalise them. You know, at the end of the day, this is what the danger with this is. And as you say, I wish that Labour MPs in particular be more passionate when we saw the vile hate marches on the streets of London, supporting Hamas, a terrorist organisation that murdered over 1,400 innocent women and children. It's amazing how on that one they were silent and they're happy to say that Israel's committing genocide, but God forbid they find the backbone to suddenly call out an actual terrorist group and people in Gaza who are fully supportive in aiding and abetting that terrorist group. And we should be unashamedly supporting our Israeli friends and unashamedly standing with the Jewish community. Now, no Muslim should fear any hatred for their faith.
Absolutely.
But no Christian, no Buddhist, no Sikh should also get abused for their faith. But blasphemy laws have no place in this country. And the moment we introduce that, talk about free speech is going to be ripped up because anyone saying anything critical will be deemed to be spreading hate and will therefore create criminalisation. I want my police locking up drug dealers, locking up thieves, locking up rapists, banging up murderers, and most importantly, catching those filthy nonces that plague our communities. That's what I want them to focus on, not monitoring what we say online about religion. People say stupid things, fine them, but you don't need to waste time criminalising them.
Could not agree with you any more on that. And before you go, as the former deputy chair, this story, civil servants and politicians have been given a gadget limit after a taxpayer-funded splurge on iPads. The new order has been issued by the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, and limits civil servants and other officials to 2 taxpayer-funded electronic devices. The limit was put in place after the number in that one department, 6,000. Did you get an iPad when you were the leader, deputy leader, the deputy chairman? Yes or no?
No.
And if you had, would you have given it back?
Yeah, because the Conservative Party funded it. I got one from IPSA when I was elected. They gave us a staffing, but they gave us a IT budget when you're newly elected. They gave me a laptop and an iPad that they had chosen to purchase on my behalf and then took it out.
You'd be useless in court. You'd be useless in court, man. You absolutely... Bless him, he's straight out with it. I wasn't me, Governor. I didn't nick the iPad.
No, but I would say... No, but I'm just saying how it works. And I was always bemused why I was given things before being allowed to choose if I wanted them or not, because I'm an old-fashioned laptop guy. I'm not really able to do...
You're talking to a man who started doing his first maths O-level with a slide rule. It's always a pleasure to have you on. JG, we love you. Jonathan Gullis, former deputy chair of the Tory party, but talking really strongly there. Badenoch on breakfast with the amazing Mike Graham. She says we might be open to fracking. We think Rachel Reeves should be sacked. Are you convinced by Kemi Badenoch? 2 questions there. Are you convinced? Is she the real deal? Has she got what it takes to take on that miserable git in number 10? Is she the future? Is she Margaret Thatcher? Is she that conviction politician that gets you going? And while we're at it, she says they might consider fracking. Are you a fracker? You try saying that. Are you into fracking? Are you drill, baby, drill? Or are you like, no, that's going to ruin the environment? I don't know why I did that voice. I just thought I would. 0344 499 1000 is my telephone number. Please call, because if you won't, I'm going home.
This is a difficult one because he did say that he wanted Sadiq Khan. He said that someone should kill Sadiq Khan, and now he's trying to defend it in terms of free speech. Wanting someone to be killed is the opposite of free speech. That if there's going to be something that shuts someone up, it's a threat of this.
And again, do I think that he genuinely wanted Sadiq Khan killed? No, but it's totally an unacceptable, inappropriate, and let's face it, criminal language, isn't it, to say that?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Drive, we're live across the UK, 4:28. As I say, this show is weird, obviously because I host it, but we come with these great ideas, or not many of them, and then it goes in a certain direction. It is absolutely centred on Kemi Badenoch. She was on Mike Graham this morning, and also fracking. I love that word. Are you a fracker? Do you believe in fracking, or are you like a Greenpeace person? I don't even know why I did that. 0344 499 1000. Stuart Jez, I need to correct you. Kemi Badenoch did not side with fracking. She didn't answer one bloody question that Mike set her. I love that. Chris, Badenoch is all could, might, maybe, not a single nailed-down policy. It's because she's having to tiptoe around the One Nation Tories and will do what all Tory leaders have to do, which is steer a middle course. And actually, Ryan and I were just talking about it, because you get a feeling, don't you, when people start texting in. The people that listen to this station, they want decisiveness and conviction, whether that is Nigel Farage or somebody else. They want somebody who's prepared to put their neck on the line and say, I believe in this. If you don't, I'll either convince you or you can sort off and vote for somebody else. But that's what I stand for, not this fence-sitting Brad. It was clear from the interview with MG that Kemi is still going to sit on the fence on all issues. She is trying to please everyone, which is what Boris tried to do and failed, and what Tories have done forever. Susie, a woman after my own heart. Drill, baby, drill. Countered by Rachel. Jez, no fracking. Absolutely not. No, no, no. All right, Rach, you crack on then. Your bill's going to continue to rise. Jeremy, as regard fracking, the Canadians have a new, safer method that has the same results without the environmental impacts. Great debate. OK, Canada. Is that still on independent state, or has it joined America yet? No. Talk, Jez. I live in Surrey. Oh, good. And by all accounts, there is shale below our feet. As far as I'm concerned, they can frack at the end of my bleeding road if it affects and does something for my bill. Christian Ottershaw. Bev, no brainer, JK. We need to frack. We need to start manufacturing. Put pride back in the term made in Britain, and in terms of clothing, quality, non-throwaway fashion, because it is made of a high standard and made to last. Bev, I couldn't agree more. To the phone lines, 0344 499 1000 for Talk Drive. Let's go. I have to lean forward because my eyes aren't great. Hertfordshire, David, a very good afternoon, sir. What you got? Couple of minutes, go.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. I declared I'm in favour of fracking to start with. I think I may have a solution which derives from America. My brother-in-law lives in Ohio in a residential area, and they discovered an oil field as part of the residential area he's in.
Yep.
Obviously, when they went to drill, or wanted to drill the company, everyone objected. They didn't want nodding donkeys or this, that and the other. What the company did is turn around and actually pay all the residents in that area a sum of money every month to compensate them for the drilling.
Were you not listening to Jonathan Gullis? Because he actually said, and I agree with you entirely, he said that maybe it will get to the point where you have to compensate people in that area, in the areas where one fracks for the good of the British public, and that would reduce their bills. Maybe that's the answer. I don't disagree with you at all. I just don't understand how we have this natural wealth and we're doing nothing about it whilst we're becoming, well, skinter by the day.
Absolutely, I totally agree. But what I'm saying is, what they found is there was a massive objection to the drilling, and then as soon as people were given X $100 a month, suddenly all these objections evaporated. No, we weren't relying on the government. You were relying on the people who actually did the drilling, because all the drilling would be done by private companies. It wouldn't be done by GB Energy and this guy.
GB Energy only has one man called Jürgen who hasn't got an office and no staff.
Hard worker if he's going to do all this work.
Jürgen, thank you so much. Brian's in Swindon. Brian, you're on Talk Drive. 2 minutes. What you got?
Good evening, good afternoon, Mr. Cole.
You nearly got that wrong, didn't you?
I did, didn't I?
Do you want to do it again to make yourself sound cooler in case you listen back? Good afternoon, Brian's in Swindon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cole. How are you?
Not too bad for a balding 60-year-old has-been. What you got for me?
Same as. Right, basically, Mr. Eco-Man...
Millipede.
Who wants to put solar panels on schools, etc. That is assuming, as I said to your researcher, that the schools are in a good state of repair and they take the weight of the solar panels.
Oh, my God. Honestly, I just... If somebody could... Do you know what it is? If somebody bright could say to me, using solar panels or wind farms or whatever other ridiculous things I don't understand, if this lowered our bills, I would be supportive. It doesn't. It's an ideology based on no financial sense. We are going to bankrupt ourselves still further if we follow a dream and allow people like Millipede to push us down that way. It's frightening. Absolutely frightening. Really appreciate your call. Oh, hold on a second. Graham says, Jeremy, great show, mate. So passionate, but please slow down. You are talking too quick. Zoe, good afternoon. Dig, baby, dig. But this isn't what Labour are about. They hate us British folk. That's Zoe in Lancashire. No, I can't talk, Zoe. So at 4:35. We are live across the United Kingdom, 0344 499 1000. Delighted to be joined now by the political correspondent of The Sun, Noah Hoffman. Noah, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Jeremy. Great to be with you today.
Where are you?
I am in Westminster at the moment in the Sun's Parliament office.
And I know exactly what's behind your left shoulder. Jack Elsom's jacket.
That I couldn't possibly comment.
Brilliant. Listen, thank you so much indeed for joining us. We had Kemi Badenoch on Mike Graham's amazing breakfast show this morning, where she said Rachel Thieves, you know, Rachel from Accounts, should indeed be sacked. And in any other business, a woman that incompetent who'd messed up her budget in October and was basically having to do what she's going to do tomorrow to put that right. Thoughts on it? What are the thoughts around Westminster amongst the Labour MPs about Rachel Reeves? Because you hear rumours all the time.
Yeah, so there are a lot of very unhappy Labour MPs. However, their reason for disappointment is perhaps a little different to that of Kemi Badenoch. A lot of MPs at the moment are mostly concerned about spending cuts that are expected to be announced tomorrow. Billions worth of spending cuts, a 15% reduction in the civil service, a lot of measures to reduce this massive bloat that happened in the pandemic and just hasn't been deflated since. Now, to most of your wonderful listeners, Jeremy, this makes a lot of sense. Why do we have, you know, someone sending out a boring press release to journalists that we're never going to write when probably AI could do it for them? So overall, there'll be some good measures in that regard, but Labour MPs and trade unions are very upset about it. There are some Labour MPs, I should add, who call themselves sort of like Labour growth MPs. They're happier with these measures. But generally, there are a lot of more sort of left-wing, ideologically driven Labour backbenchers who are not going to be happy campers tomorrow.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I always say the view from the cheap seats in opposition is so much easier, and it's very easy. The Tories are a disaster and the British public stopped listening, but I keep watching clips of Starmer saying, listen to me, not a penny more on your council tax. It's almost as if the job is theirs and they've suddenly realised, actually, you know, it isn't as easy as you make it out to be, and they are going to have to cut supreme wastage in the civil service. They are going to have to accept, the Labour Party, for God's sake, that there are people screwing our benefit system for their own good because the system has too many holes in it, going almost against, you talk about ideology, almost against everything you would expect from the Labour Party. So traditional Labour MPs, of course, traditional Labour MPs, out in force. I can't get too excited about tomorrow because Rachel from Accounts doesn't excite anybody. can I ask you about fracking? We had Bednock, as I said this morning, on with Mike. I think she's a fence-sitter. I didn't hear any passion, but she says that she's open to maybe considering fracking. I just want to ask you about the MPs in Westminster. I had this debate the whole time. They all jump up and down and say, we need more houses, but when it comes to their constituency, it's a different matter altogether. I suspect the same would be said about fracking. I mean, in America, it's drill, baby, drill. What's the sort of consensus, do you think, amongst our politicians?
That's correct. I don't think there's any sort of majority consensus of the Tory party, and definitely within Reform, there's a lot of appetite to get fracking going and to drill, baby, drill, as you said. But overall, I would say the majority of MPs, that including quite a lot of Tories, as well as obviously Labour, the Lib Dems, and the other small little people. They
hold on. This show is going to be like a remake of Snow White. You can't say small people. You can't say dwarfs. These are magical.
Like minor parties.
Let's call them magical creatures in Westminster, and then we won't upset the woke lot. All right? Is that okay?
That is very much fine with me, Jeremy. The minor parties, obviously not including Reform, who have made a very much making headlines all the time and have really put their sort of stamp on the map here. But I would say most MPs don't have that appetite, and I would not expect to see any movement on that front at any time under Labour.
Do you think she's in for a rough ride tomorrow from her MPs and the House in general, Rachel Reeves, or what?
So the usual suspects on the very sort of fringes of the left of the Labour Party will kick up a fuss. But a lot of MPs who are generally considered the more Blairites, but are still upset with the extent to which Rachel Reeves is taking cutting spending, are really keeping their sort of anguish private. So how they're sort of disseminating it is through letters to private, so PPSs, the people who sort of gauge public MPs' opinions for the ministers, and, you know, just trying to organise amongst themselves without getting the media and the public involved, which some may argue is disingenuous. That's up to your listeners to decide. But I think overall, a lot of the public anger will come from people who we could probably name today.
As a political correspondent for the brilliant Sun, be honest, because I love having you on. How excited are you about tomorrow? Because I myself would rather watch grass grow.
Well, I haven't seen the new episode of The White Lotus yet, so I'd much rather watch that. And quite a few other things.
Good.
But I have a job to do, and there'll be some, I don't know, important statements. But I mean, we can probably write most of the stories tonight, because we're not expecting any, I mean, famous last words, but we aren't expecting any sort of rabbit out of a hat. We're not expecting anything super sexy. So I do think that basically all the information is out there. Let's see if I'm wrong though.
When you come off air with me, can you say to Elsom, he's fired, you're much better. We loved having you on. Noah Hoffman, thank you very much indeed. A political correspondent for The Sun. More, of course, about that spring statement tomorrow. And on a serious note, look, here it is. Our Chancellor tomorrow is going to make a series of statements. Will she cut the workforce in the civil service? Will she cut benefits for people? Stuff that you would never have thought the Labour Party would do. Window dressing. Sorry, it's how I see Badenoch. I see them all, I'm afraid, except for Reform, but Reform haven't been in power, so that's easy to say. I see them all the same. I wanted more passion from Badenoch. I want, you know, I'd like Starmer to stand up and go, do you know what? Actually, there will be people in my party who don't like this, but we have benefits being screwed out of this society by people who don't deserve them. And I am your Prime Minister, and I'm going to do something about it for the sake of this country. 0344 499 1000, 90 minutes to 5. You would talk drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
In my ear, ladies and gentlemen, my producer Ryan has just said the most interesting thing today is that certain supermarkets are going to put a limit on Lindt chocolate because it's such nice, people are buying too much. That's what we're trying to do today, bring entertainment to you in a dearth of misery. Jez, it's irrelevant what Kemi Badenoch says. To be honest, the Tories have absolutely zero chance of getting in. Unfortunately, Labour is going nowhere either. Bring on reform. Thank you, Dave Clifford. Pete the Mole. What does that mean, Pete the Mole? Does that mean he's got a mole on his face? Does it mean he's a mole because he lives underground? What does that mean? Where is Sillyban this week? Where else has he travelled off to? I hate him. I don't care. Andy's in Darlington. Usual high levels of common sense on the show. Thank you. Regarding Millipede and the net zero zealots, you know what's at the centre of environmentalism, don't you? Mental. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Maureen, Jeremy. Oh, I'm in trouble. I'm 72 years of age and will never call myself a has-been. My brother is 60 this August and is so far from being a has-been that I still think of him as my baby brother. Stop being with the has-been narrative. You are beginning to make me feel old. You are. 4:45, joking. 03 double, we can't joke. Oh no, that's far too bad. 03 double, don't joke. Oh, somebody might be offended. 0344 419 1000, text to 87222. Fracking, are you up for it or not? Drill, baby, drill, or no? Let's care about the environment. I always think no. 0344 419 1000, text to 87222. There's a journalist whose opinions have always been spot on. That's what it says here. But we couldn't get her, so we've booked Alicia Fitzgerald. A very good afternoon. How are you?
Brilliant opening. Yeah, great. Thank you, Jeremy.
I'm going to cut to the chase about James, your boyfriend. I saw a post the other day of him having a massage.
It was actually a facial. And do you know what? They're anti-aging, so you should get one.
Very good comeback. It's like we didn't practice it. My daughter the other day said my neck looked like a turkey's. Anyway, Alicia, a very good afternoon. Welcome. Explain to me, as a political correspondent, how excited you are about the spring statement tomorrow. I'm doing my best here, of course.
I can't control myself, honestly. Yeah. Like, you know, highlight of the year, amazing stuff. And do you know, I think the highlight is definitely that everything is leaked beforehand. So you don't even get the element of surprise that you used to. Because I feel like in times gone by...
That's a really good point. Why do they? Why do they leak it all before?
I genuinely feel like the reason is that it started off as an accident. It just happened to be that journalists were getting hold of stories and policy announcements that would come. And then to try and get ahead of it, they decided that they'd leak it themselves. And then as a result, we now know everything about 4 weeks in advance. So when it comes to the statement, no one's actually listening because they're just reading the stuff that we already know about. So
what do you make? You have your ear to the ground. We had Badenoch on mic this morning saying that in any other job, Rachel Thieves, or Richard III, if you look at the picture of her, would have been fired. There's no doubt that when they came to power talking about growth, and then screwed every small and medium-sized business in October and moaned about a £22 billion black hole and then spent another £11 billion on giving their union mates pay rises, that it's actually been not the best first few months for her. What's the feeling on the ground about Rachel Thieves in Parliament?
I mean, look, it's definitely awkward. And I think the trouble is that pretty much both sides of the Labour Party are not happy with it because you've got those more towards the right of the party who traditionally would be more aligned to what Rachel Reeves's plans are, who are really just focusing on the fact that the OBR are set to slash the growth forecast in half. And part of the reason they trusted Labour was because of that mission for growth and the fact they said growth was the #1 priority. And then on the flip side, you've got the more traditional left-wing Labour MPs who are just so fuming about the disability benefits that's their kind of overriding reaction to the whole statement as well. So you've got kind of two very conflicting policies, both of which don't really seem to be pleasing anyone within the actual party. Which
is also rather, I mean, that's the interesting thing, because you're dead right. For a Labour government to contemplate, you know, cancelling disability benefit tackling in any sort of way is extraordinary, but it points to how much of a hole this country is in. Others could say, well, Starmer's doing right and he's addressing these problems to the detriment of perhaps some of his traditional supporters. It'll be very interesting to see. Fracking is the other, I love that word, fracking is the other big debate today. Badenoch was on, well, I don't think she said we're going to support it. I think she sat on the bleeding fence and said we might support it. I was just asking Noah Hoffman from The Sun about what the feeling is. I've always thought, Alicia, because you've always been straight with me, I've always thought the whole mess of fracking is very much like housing. You get all these, you know, these very, very enthusiastic MPs who jump out, we need more houses, we need this, we need that. Not in my constituency. They're all, do you know what I mean? They give it all this big thing and then not where I live. And I think the same with fracking. But somebody just made a suggestion, which is really interesting. Why don't they instigate fracking and compensate the people in whose area that takes place by giving them lower energy bills? Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would. I think the weird thing about Kemi Badenoch coming out and speaking about this was actually, fracking was banned in the UK, I think it was 2019, which was when the Tories were in power, which is obviously her party. So I do feel like, I don't know, it's a bit interesting that it's a bit of a backtrack there, potentially. I'm not to say that Kemi Badenoch had a role in actually banning it.
No, but what you're pointing to is it's nothing new, is it? I want to hear new policies. One of my big arguments every day from Badenoch. She seems to be fence-sitting, again, a bit like Starmer, a bit like Reeves, because there are so many different angles and parts of a party. I keep saying it every day until I'm blue in the face. We want conviction politicians who can take criticism and accept that they're not going to be popular all the time, but it's something that they believe in and the electorate has voted them in to do.
Well, I think with this as well, she's obviously just literally verbatim copying Donald Trump. I mean, it's him who says the whole drill, baby, drill, let's bring back fracking. And it's kind of, you know, I don't know why Kemi Badenoch's trying to go into that kind of Donald Trump playbook. Well, I do know why. It's obviously because she knows that Reform will do it if she doesn't, and that's their only hope of ever kind of clinging on to any kind of power again.
So, are you like me? Do you think she's she could be toast very quickly? Because I do.
I do think it's too early to say, only because there's been so many times in the past where we've thought this about people and then they're kind of like cockroaches, right? They just never die. Nothing gets rid of them. So
Alicia Fitzgerald is that is the best description of an MP. They're like cockroaches. You can hit them forever, but they won't die. I love that.
It's true, though. It's true. You're always like, oh, this will be the thing that gets them. There's no way they'll survive this. And then, like, 5 years later, they're absolutely fine and they're, like, on 300 grand a year or something. It's crazy. So that might be the case for her. It may well not be, though. All it takes is one serious mishap, I guess, or just a massive accumulation of loads of things that really anger people for a new leader to be brought in. But I do think the Tories really want to avoid any kind of shifts, any changes in leadership, just because everyone was so sick of that when they were in power.
Can I say, and I genuinely mean this, you're going to think I'm being sarcastic. I forget sometimes how brilliant you are. Are you covering the boring?
No, you don't.
Yeah, no.
You tell me every time. You don't forget. What are you on about?
No, brilliant, really good segment. Are you on? Can you work? Can you give us 10 minutes of your time tomorrow? Because at least I can have a laugh with you. Because it's going to be a bit serious.
All right. I'm going to be in Dorset, but
why?
My mum lives there.
So do I.
Yeah, I know you do. We've had this chat.
Are you coming to my house tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to go sit outside your house.
OK, fair enough. All right, very, very, very baby reindeer. Anyway, we'll try and get you on tomorrow. We'd love to. Alicia Fitzgerald, thank you very much indeed. 10 to 5. We're live across the UK. Fracking, yes or no? Rachel Reeves, is she competent, yes or no? Look, phone us. 0344 499 1000. We're back in 3.
is a difficult one because he did say that he wanted Sadiq Khan. He said that someone should kill Sadiq Khan, and now he's trying to defend it in terms of free speech. Wanting someone to be killed is the opposite of free speech. That if there's going to be something that shuts someone off, it's a threat of this.
And again, do I think that he genuinely wanted Sadiq Khan killed? No, but it's totally an unacceptable, inappropriate, and let's face it, criminal language, isn't it, to say that?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back to Drive on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. I have to tell you, I can feel a little rank coming on. I've just been handed a piece of paper. This is... I'm going to... Trans patients with beards can be sent to female wards in Scottish hospitals thanks to NHS policies and procedures allowing them to self-identify as women, the Telegraph has just revealed. NHS Tayside's dignity and privacy policy states that patients must not normally be placed on mixed-sex wards, and any that are should receive an apology. It says that trans people should be sent to wards that match their presentation, a term defined as the way they dress, their name or their pronouns, irrespective of whether they've got a penis or not. I've got Sharon Davis on later on. I'm going to go to... Have they not learnt from the Isla Bryson thing? Male rapist with a penis gets sent to female prison by putting a wig on and a pair of tights, which you could see as lunchbox. The world's gone nuts. Rant, rant, rant. Johnny's a new caller in Suffolk. Johnny, you got 2 minutes. Welcome to Talk Drive. What you got?
How you doing, mate? Listen, I've watched you for like the past 15 years before the show got cancelled, and I'm just here to say on behalf of the British people that haven't got the minerals or the MPs that we do have a financial crisis on our hands. We have a financial crisis because the government, no matter what government, you know, Labour, Conservatives, Tories, doesn't matter who it is, the British people are the ones that are suffering, not them. When you're an MP, no matter if you're the MP at this during time or previously, you're paid £152,000 a year. Once Richie Sunak left, he was still paid £152,000 for each financial year that happens. You got British people that can't pay for food, electric, gas, you know, and
that's why so many people, Johnny, are offended by the immigration numbers, not because we're heartless racists, as some people have said, but because we need to be looking, I'm afraid, because there is no money, after our own people first and foremost, don't we?
Well, of course we do, but we've got no money because all these people are too busy lining their pockets with the British people taxes.
I couldn't agree more, mate. I wish I had longer to speak to you. Where are you calling from, Suffolk, buddy?
I am calling from Suffolk.
Whereabouts in Suffolk, buddy?
Near Ipswich.
Nice. Listen, really appreciate you being on. Really keep listening. Thank you so much, Johnny in Ipswich. Terry is in Leeds. Terry, you've literally got a minute and a half. What you got, kidder?
Right, first of all, this blasphemy law, surely for a blasphemy law to be enforced, you'd have to prove the existence of a god.
Oh, God. Oh, yes. See, we're going to get religious. I'm going to be in trouble now. This is, by the way... What?
If this government wants to say, right, we've got to follow blasphemy laws and follow say that there's a god, surely in your last subject about trans, well, didn't God create a man and a woman? He didn't create 8 million different species.
Well, yes, I don't disagree. I don't quite know what to say. Blasphemy law, I mean, this is this story, if you've just tuned in, which is extraordinarily weird. This is Angela Rayner, who's decided that, I mean, it's basically people mistakenly identified as Muslims, mistakenly could be victims of Islamophobia under her new group. Basically, she says that if other faith groups be perceived as Muslims and be treated badly, that means Sikhs, Hindus, atheists, Yan, Buddhists, no mention of Jews. If you get insulted, you will be you will be told off as well, which is great. Listen, nobody should insult anybody's religion. We should respect every single religion. But yet again, it's another example, is it not, of it's always in one direction. I said it earlier, I'll say it again, I'll get slaughtered on social media. I have many Jewish friends whose kids can't walk the streets in their school blazers. That's also racist, that's also wrong, but I never hear about that. Good to have you on, my friend. Thank you very much indeed. That is Terry in Leeds. That's almost 1 hour done. Goodness me, what a start. Afternoon, Jez. Drill, drill, drill. Badenoch will never be Prime Minister. It's reform all the way. Steve is in Cambridge. Kevin Blair. No relation, one hopes. Hi, Jez. There are 1.1 million fracking sites across 30 states in the US, so if there were significant geological effects, we would have seen it by now. The threat of earthquakes due to fracking is a complete myth. Kev is in Bolton. Patricia, brilliant idea about incentives to residents in fracking zones. Weed out the namby-pamby naysayers rather nicely. They're telling me in the ear it's 30 seconds, which means I have to talk up to this bit. Hello to Ernie, by the way. He doesn't drive the fastest milk cart in the West. If you want to be on the next hour of this vain attempt at a drive time show. Now, 0344 499 1000 is our number as ever. You can ring Joe, you can send a voice note to Ryan, who's very tall, or you can send us a text. Start your message with the word talk, 87222. We will do the news at 5, and Sir Jake Berry is next on Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back, hour 2 of Drive for Tuesday afternoon, and my erstwhile producer, there's a story that I just was telling them, that because I watch kids' television all the time, because I've got more kids than Boris Johnson. Peppa Pig's mummy's pregnant. And somebody posted online, it went viral, that they don't know who the father is because Daddy Pig was at work. They need Jeremy Kyle with the DNA test. Those days are gone. But here's the thing. Ryan went, yeah, I'd heard about that. Let's be honest, it's more interesting than the economy and the spring statement. Let's talk about Peppa Pig. I don't know what to say about Peppa Pig. I thought George... Anyway, never mind. Let's talk about lots of things that interest you. But let's do this story before we get Sir Jake Berry on. We can talk about fracking. We can talk about Rachel Thieves. We can talk about everything to do with this government or the Tories or reform. But I want to put this to you, ladies and gentlemen. Do you remember Isla Bryson, that disgusting human being, a male Scotsman who raped 2 women and then decided during the process of being convicted that he would change sex, just identify as a woman. So he bought a wig and a pair of tight, and I'm not joking here, tight pink leggings and came out of court in stilettos. You could see the lunchbox swinging from side to side and got put, on a serious note, in a female jail. There was an uproar and many say it was at that moment that Nicola Sturgeon's career started to go downhill. They're at it again, the Scots. Trans patients with beards I've met a couple of women with beards, but not many, can be sent to female wards in Scottish hospitals thanks to NHS policies and procedures allowing them to self-identify as women. NHS Tayside's dignity and privacy policy states that patients must not normally be placed in mixed-sex wards, that any that are should receive an apology. But it says that trans people should be sent to wards that match their presentation, so that the way they dress, their name and their pronouns, that's all that matters. So you could have a bloke in a dress with a... It's like Ryan. Ryan's got a beard. It'd be like Ryan, right, today, is in Scotland with his wife and he gets ill and there's a queue and he thinks, I quite like... There's a bigger, nicer bed in the female ward, so he puts something on a skirt and then... Is it not madness, peeps? Help me out. 0344 419 1000. We say a very good afternoon to a man who's always known to speak the truth, former chair of the Conservative Party, a man with morality, says here. Sir Jake Berry, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well. Good afternoon, Jeremy.
Have you ever had a beard?
No, I once grew a moustache, but my wife refused to go to bed with me, so I shaved it off.
Excellent. Nice and narrow. Trans patients with beards can be sent to female wards in Scottish hospitals. I know, like me, you're just open-mouthed. They didn't learn from Isla Bryson. Apparently, NHS Tayside say that trans people should be sent to wards that match their presentation, Jake, defined as the way they dress, their name and the pronouns they use. It's ludicrous, isn't it?
Well, look, many women, when they're in hospital, are at the most vulnerable. If you think about women having treatment for breast cancer or cervical cancer, they feel deeply, deeply vulnerable. And that's why, actually, in all fairness, Tony Blair did it when he was Prime Minister. We moved to single-sex wards. To have that huge progress for both men and for women undermined in this way, in my view, is completely unacceptable. Gender is a different thing than sex. There is only 2 sexes legally in this country, is male and female, and you should be put in a hospital ward based on your sex rather than your self-identified gender. I think both men and women would be really concerned about this, and I just think it's this sort of ultra-woke agenda being pushed by the Scottish Government again. You might have thought that they would have learnt their lesson from one of them being kicked out for these sort of bonkers ideas, but they just keep on going.
And it's really interesting. I haven't ever said this to you. I've said it a couple of times on the show. All the women who... A lot of women, activist women, who quite rightly, I've said it, fight for women's rights, have always believed that women's rights are important. You don't hear jack, excuse the pun, you don't hear anything from them when these sorts of stories, all these people jump up and down and say you're being horrible to trans people and those who identify as women. It doesn't matter if you've got a beard. That puts women in a dangerous position. That surely is really, really important, as you just said.
So, Jeremy, look, you are right, as always, but only partially right, as you sometimes are, because some of the most vehement activists in this space are feminists who have fought, as you say, tooth and nail to get equality for women and to get women's spaces and to get women treated as they always should have been by society. And they look at this and see this undermined by this trans activism, and some of the best known people who speak out of it, journalists and influencers, are feminists. And of course you had the group Lesbians and Feminists for Trump, who were supporting Donald Trump and were huge vocal advocates of Donald Trump. So you do get people campaigning about this because it's just really, really important. If I think of my wife, her most vulnerable, in a hospital ward, I don't want the person next to her, self-identifying as a woman, to have the legal, to be a male, for their sex to be male, regardless of how they identify.
It's really interesting.
It makes me uncomfortable.
There are certain things that really get the audience. This has got them already. Nancy, listen to this, Jake. No biological male should be on a female ward. As a trained nurse, I'm heartbroken how Scotland's NHS has been captured. We learned biology, male and female. That's it. We have women and children now unsafe in wards. Who is speaking out for increasing sexual assaults in hospitals? I'm utterly ashamed by the once great health service that is now prioritising stupid ideology to the detriment of women and children's safety. That, I think, is absolutely true, isn't it?
Well, that's a brilliant thing about talk, isn't it? Because we get the wisdom of crowds when your listeners and viewers call in, and I just couldn't have put that better myself. So all I can say is, yes, I absolutely agree with you. We've got to do something to stop this.
Dawn puts it far more like Jeremy Carr will put it. Trans people should go to ward depending on what's between their legs rather than what they identify with. It's disgusting. Jake, let's move it on. This morning, I've been quite vocal about Kemi Badenoch. I haven't heard enough. I don't care what anybody tells me. I hear repeatedly from Tories that she's spending her time with her head down, working out what should come next. I would have thought that it was patently obvious what was wrong, and I want conviction, leadership, and I want to know what she's about. She appeared with Mike this morning. The first thing she talked about was Rachel Reeves, in her opinion, in any other job, would be fired. Let's have a listen. Kemi this morning with Mike.
I think in any other field, she would have, but I think she's actually one of the best that they've got on the Labour bench.
That's the bad news,
which is what's really sad. That if she goes, we're likely to get someone much worse. You listen to Labour backbenchers, and a lot of the things that they ask for are completely crazy. They would bankrupt the country tomorrow. But I do think that she's out of her depth. But being the first female whatever is not an achievement if you're doing a bad job.
No.
And it's the people that you're working for that should give a verdict on whether you've achieved something or not.
Yeah.
And the mistakes that she made in that budget are what she's trying to fix now with the emergency budget that we're getting tomorrow. This is not something that's reacting to world events. She made errors, problems have been caused, and now she's going to try and fix them again tomorrow.
Let's just talk specifically, if you're OK, Jake, about Kemi. Has she got what it takes as the leader? Maybe even Mike and I disagree. I don't know. I don't think she'll last. I'm sorry. I'm sure she's a very nice lady, and she came in and that was great. But then look, our Prime Minister's about as exciting as a used tea bag. I just don't feel it. I don't feel. When I hear Farage speak, I don't care what people say. You might disagree with a lot that Nigel says, but there's passion, there's conviction, there's desire to follow somebody, whether you agree with absolutely everything or not. Trump-esque, if you like. Is she a leader?
Well, I mean, she certainly is a leader of the Conservative Party, but look, we need to see more of her. I want to hear more of Kemi. I believe she has what it takes, not just to lead the Conservative Party, but to lead our country. But the challenge she has is that you have this disruptor, Nigel Farage. That's not Nigel's fault. He's got his own political party that he wants to succeed. And he does sort of, he's like a Boris Johnson character, isn't he? He sort of sucks in all the publicity and the headlines. Now, in a way, that's quite good for Kemi, because she needs to work out how she deals with some of the toxic legacy of the last Conservative government, one I was a member of, but I know some of the legacy is toxic. And work out what our offer is to the British people.
How long does it take to work out an offer, Jake? But Jake, I'm not trying to stop you, but it's been 9 months. I suspect that a lot of British people, maybe they've decided they'll never vote Tory again, but there must be millions of people who feel that they want to hear. I don't know how long it takes. I'm pretty convinced with her, as I am with many politicians, which is very different to what this station is, that they're so focused on focus groups or who they won't upset if they don't say that. I know I keep going back to Trump. I know it's a different system, but I said it yesterday, I'll say it to you. I want a politician to stand and say, here I am, warts and all. I've done this, I've done that. You can write what you want. This is what I believe in. This is what I'm putting to you. And if I'm elected, that is what I'm going to implement. Irrespective of whether I get criticised or forced back, I will for you do that because that's what I believe in and that's what you voted for. I see politicians who, I'll just wait to see what that focus group says. I need more from her. I need conviction and belief and a desire to listen to what she's saying with an interest.
Well, look, the local election's coming up. We need to hear more from her. But more generally, Jeremy, I agree with you. We have got to a situation in this country where it is effectively run by the Treasury. There is no room for flair. There is no room for people's gut instinct. There is no ambition to do things differently. It's just play it safe, let everything slowly go backward, and hopefully people won't notice if it happens slowly enough. That's not what I want for my country, and it's not what I think Kemi should be offering us, and it's certainly not what the British people want. We are in a terrible, terrible state in this country.
Yep.
We can't control our borders. Our economy is going backwards. The people keep talking about stagflation. Stagflation, what does that mean? It just means everyone is getting poorer. That's what it means. If you're listening to talk and you want to know what all these economists talk about with stagflation, they are talking about you and your family getting poorer, not being able to afford to go on holiday. People want us to do things differently. They want us to break out of this political correctness focus group doom loop. And frankly, Kemi's got an opportunity to do that because she's in opposition. We need to hear her starting to do that. I would have voted for her to be leader of the Conservative Party if they'd managed to get a ballot paper to me in time to actually vote, because I believe and believed when I would have had the opportunity to vote for her that she was something different. She would break away from this. She spent 9 months, as you say, looking at what we need to do differently. Now is the time, Kemi. Cometh the hour, cometh the woman. In your case, step forward, make us believe again, make us believe in Britain, make us believe in the Conservative Party.
I think you're right. I think there was a lot written about Kemi Badenoch and how she's difficult to work with and quite vociferous and quite, Raab-esque. We know what happened to Dominic Raab. I think that she's just too safe. I mean, let me give you the other example. She was asked about fracking by Mike. Just watch this response. We're going to push the button now and hope it works.
A lot of people think that we should be fracking, but I also know that many communities don't want it where they are, that it causes problems for them. We need to make sure that we've got local consent for things like that, not just imposing it. So how do we make sure we've got a plan that goes across the board, that works, that is not going to bankrupt us? That's what I'm working on now.
Right, so one guy listened to that and texted in an answer, Jake, right? We've got Donald Trump saying drill, baby, drill. One of the biggest, and you're a farmer, you might disagree, one of the biggest amounts of money that we've got is under our ground. He said, for all the people who disagree, compensate them with money off their energy bills. That'll absolutely deal with the issue like that. Drill, baby, drill. But she's done it again there. Neither one nor the other. Everybody's texting saying she sat on the fence again. Put your money where your mouth is. Be a conviction politician, woman.
Yeah, and look, my view on fracking is, I mean, it is insanity. It's a new religion, net zero, with a high priest, Ed Miliband, whacking up all our bills. In fact, I see this week he's proposing a hydrogen levy. I think hydrogen's a good thing, but I don't see why we need a levy for it. It is frankly ridiculous that in this country we have energy bills 2 or 3 times higher than our nearest economic competitors. Guess what? What a surprise. Why are we sending all these jobs to China and now to America and to Europe? It is because our energy is too expensive. We have billions of pounds worth of gas under our feet. It is time, as Donald Trump would say, to drill, baby, drill. Yes. And for those people who really care about carbon emissions, and I'm actually one of them, I don't think net zero is right, but I do care about our environment. We now have carbon capture and storage where we can burn coal, we can burn gas, we can burn wood, we can burn whatever we want, hydrocarbons, remove all of the carbon from the emissions and lock it away underground for 1,000 years. Look, the time is now to start growing Britain's economy again, and we cannot do that when our energy is 2 or 3 times more expensive than our competitors.
And they told us, didn't they, that the Labour Party said that, I mean, they lied about council tax bills, they lied to the farmers, they lied to the pensioners, they lied to the veterans, and then they looked us full square in the face and said GB Energy, that's run by a bloke called Jurgen somewhere up north, he hasn't even got an office or any staff, they said, we're going to lower your energy bills. They've gone up. They haven't gone down at all, and they will go further up.
300 quid they were going to fall by, and they've just gone up by over 200.
Jake, the final one, you, with your experience, will be able to answer this better than me. It sort of centres on blasphemy laws, but to me it just sums up what's wrong with this country. This is Ange, the Deputy Prime Minister. People mistakenly identified as Muslims could be victims of Islamophobia. The Deputy Prime Minister, who oversees the Community Relations Department, proposed that other faith groups who could be perceived as Muslim will be covered by her planned new definition of Islamophobia or anti-Muslim hatred. This could include atheists, Sikhs, Hindus, Jain, Buddhists, according to the terms of reference for a new working group she set up to advise ministers and draw up a non-statutory definition of Islamophobia. Blasphemy laws. Political correctness gone mad. You can say hurty words and go to prison, but honestly, I don't understand it. And by the way, I'm going to say something very contentious. Why don't they include Jewish people in there who are being treated appallingly on the streets of Great Britain and online?
Well, Jeremy, anti-Semitism is already a standalone crime, and people who are calling for this Islamophobia law are saying that Islam should be treated in the same way as Judaism, which currently it's not. But actually what I find really offensive about this, and there's two elements of it. The first thing is it's kind of saying if your skin is, if you're of Asian heritage, if you're Indian, if you're from Bangladesh, if you're from Pakistan, and people, it's kind of saying all of you could just be mistaken as Muslims, and that would be Islamophobia. I think that's deeply offensive to the large communities of Sikhs and Hindus we have in this country. It's kind of like the government saying, well, you're all the same. And I just actually think that's quite racist in and of itself. And it's something I completely oppose. The second thing is about this blasphemy law is if you look at what the working group led by Dominic Grieve, who's a former Conservative minister and MP, have been talking about, it is going to get to the point where any criticism of Islam whatsoever is regarded as Islamophobia. Now, it is perfectly possible to be critical of a religion and the religious practices around it without being against people of that religion per se. So, for example, someone might say, I don't agree with the fact that Roman Catholics don't support abortion. Mm-hmm. That does not mean I am, blaspheming against Catholicism. It's saying I have a different view set than people who are Roman Catholic, and therefore I just disagree with them. I've got no problem. They can have their views. In the same way with Islam, you might say, I don't agree with women wearing the niqab, which is the facial veil. I think that is wrong. That is not saying Islam is bad or people who follow the faith of Islam are bad. It's saying there is a practice, a cultural practice in that case, related to people who are Muslim, and I don't agree with it. What we're getting to in this country is the point that any criticism whatsoever of Islam, uniquely, you don't actually have this with Judaism or Christianity, any criticism whatsoever will be a crime. That is wrong. It's not British. It doesn't respect our long-held belief in freedom of speech and the freedom to offend people and be rude to people in this country, and that is why they're on the wrong track. So it's deeply offensive, I think, to all people of South Asian heritage to lump them all in one group, and it's also the wrong thing to do. And I certainly hope that the government will take the opportunity to think again.
And just to sort of finish, as I started, I don't want anybody slagged off, criticised, put down, Jewish people, Muslim people, British people, whatever. I listen to us talking about that. I listen to us having a debate about fracking, and I look at the state of this country and I get, I come here every day and I don't want to sit here. I want to sit here and be happy. But we can barely afford the interest on the loans and the money that we earn. We have people coming to this country who are not, ladies and gentlemen, escaping war-torn countries, who are taking advantage of a system that seems to be full of loopholes unless you've been born in this country and you've paid your stamp. We've got politicians who concentrate on focus groups and what they believe we want them to do. And I just, a bit like you, I sort of feel, is it one of those seminal moments? Maybe it is Nigel Farage, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's Jake Berry, maybe it's that picture behind your head. Somebody needs to stand up and say...
I think it's time for the Jake Berry, Jeremy Kyle, the dream ticket. Let me just say one final thing on this. I know you've got to go, but another big announcement today by the Labour government was £2 billion put into their housing programme, right? So if you think about that, first of all, we've got to borrow the £2 billion. But hidden at the back of that document was a line from the Treasury that said building all these new houses will relieve the pressure on migrant hotels. Now, for me, that is proof positive that these houses that are going to be built, there is an intention in the government that those brand new houses that we built, down your street, are specifically being built to house migrants. Now, that is an offence. It's a disgrace for people who've lived and worked in this country their entire life, paid their taxes, to pay the interest on that £2 billion borrowing, for those houses to be given to people who are come to this country, in many cases falsely claiming asylum. That tells you everything that's wrong with Britain. The Labour Party, the government, the civil service is fiddling while Rome burns, and we really need to take back control of this country and ensure that it works for people who work hard.
Couldn't agree more, Jake. It's always a pleasure, my friend, to have you on. Love to the family. Thank you so much indeed to Jake Berry, former chair of the Conservative Party, 523. We're live across the UK. What do you want to talk about? So many people getting in touch with us. Some texts in a minute. We've got some breaking news, by the way. The King and Queen state visit to the Holy... what? What is that? What did you put there? Well, basically, they're not going to meet Pope Francis. It's been postponed by mutual agreement as medical advice has now suggested that he, the Pope, would benefit from an extended period of rest and recuperation. The Holy See, I see, yes, C spelt wrong. Do you understand what I did there? Absolutely. Listen, we've got Kinsey later on, talking about that dreadful woman Meghan as well, which will be fun. Next, though, I'm so excited. A woman who speaks truth the whole time. Sharon Davis. This is on the day that bearded trans women, it's been said by an NHS organisation in Scotland, can be treated on female wards. That's a woman with a beard. Back in 3.
This is a difficult one because he did say that he wanted Sadiq Khan. He said that someone should kill Sadiq Khan, and now he's trying to defend it in terms of free speech. Wanting someone to be killed is the opposite of free speech. That if there's going to be something that shuts someone up, it's a threat of this.
And again, do I think that he genuinely wanted Sadiq Khan killed? No, but it's totally an unacceptable, inappropriate, and let's face it, criminal language, isn't it, to say that?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Drive on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. 5:27 in a tick. Some text message and some calls, but I'm delighted to be joined by another guest, Olympic medalist and author, and a woman that speaks common, bleeding sense. Sharon Davis, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. How about you?
Oh, you know, just I feel like the older I get, I'm becoming more and more cranky because this country is on its arse and its madness. I mean, I'll do that story about Scotland in a minute, but I know, I mean, you're on to sort of celebrate something. I mean, world athletics, have they is this the turning, is the ship turning? World Athletics today will introduce mandatory testing for anyone entering female competitions to verify their biological sex, insisting it is necessary to protect women's sport. It's the latest move overseen by Seb Coe, of course, as president of the governing body, to address the gender eligibility issue 2 years after banning anyone assigned male at birth from female events. This is something to finally be celebrating, isn't it, Sharon?
Yeah, absolutely. We used to have sex screening tests. In fact, I had one way back in 1976 when I went to my first Olympics. Lost it now, but I've had 3 kids, so I reckon that's okay. Now I can actually prove it. But yes, I mean, it was there for 30 years. And when they polled their athletes in 96 at the IOC, polled their athletes at the Olympics, 84% said they wanted to carry on. And of course, they stopped it. So, I mean, this is something that women have always wanted. They just want a female category for people that are born female. They don't care how you want to identify. They don't care what you want to call yourself, what you want to wear. They just want the biological reality of the sex that you are that will affect your sporting performance to be recognised, so that we have a female category. And if needs be, we can create an open category. But what will happen is that the men will be over here and the females will be over here. And I mean, the only thing I would say is there needs to be someone maybe for trans-identifying females who take testosterone to race. So, you know, my sort of suggestion way back when I started going on about this 10 years ago now, would you believe it, was to go female open so that, you know, everybody could have a place in sport, because everybody must have a place in sport. But half the world is female and we deserve to have fair sport.
I never understood it, and I told a story once and they all looked at me like I'd landed from Mars because I'm that old. I remember Billie Jean King, the very famous American tennis player and legend, really. She had a relationship with do you remember Renee Richards?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this was a man who changed sex. That's fine. I have my own opinions. He was ranked 487th in the world as a male tennis player, and 2 years later was ranked, check it out, it's a fact, top 10 in the world in female tennis. That doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. And I don't understand why. I mean, I'm glad that sense has prevailed, because it's a bit like the argument about the you know, toilets and same-sex toilets. All these people that jump up and down and argue for women's rights, quite rightly, fairness in women's sports and safe spaces, they end up arguing against women's safety and women's rights. I think it's absolutely right. By all means, have a category for trans athletes if that's what you're going to have. But females shouldn't have to put up with that, because it's been proven that it isn't fair and it isn't just and it isn't right.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, when we have done that, so World Aquatics did that. They created a category at the first of our World Cups a couple of years ago now, and not a single trans athlete turned up, because that's not what they're after. You know, these males are after the advantage of being into female sport. You know, you mentioned Renee there, and Renee has actually always come out on the side of fair female sport. But we also had Leah Thomas, you know, Leah Thomas, who went from being 600th in America at distance freestyle to being #1 at sprint freestyle in the women's category. Well, that's like Mo Farah all of a sudden deciding he wants to win the Olympics at 100 metres. It doesn't make sense. And everybody knows that. Everybody in sport knew that. So this is well done to Seb. You know,
well, I was going to say about him, do you think...
When he didn't get his, you know, IOC presidency, so that was, they closed ranks to keep him out there because he wants transparency and change. But in track and field, he can make a difference, and hopefully other sports will follow.
So, I mean, his campaigning, Lord Coe's, has made... I mean, you would say it's been instrumental in World Athletics making this decision, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've had their DSD difference, you know, problems as well. So this is differences of sexual development. So they are two very separate things. One is, you know, trans-identifying athletes who are athletes that know that they're male, now deciding that they want to adopt the identity of the opposite sex. DSD athletes are those with a difference of sexual development. So the famous ones like Semenya are males, were born males, but they had internal testes. So when they were picked up, they went like this, went, oh, must be a little girl. They wrote an F on their passport and off they go. But they are male and they go through male puberty. And that was dominating in track and field. In fact, in Rio, the first 3 winners on the medal podium were all males. and the first female was fourth and never got on the podium. So their whole life would have been very different. And I speak out because of the East German era, different process, but same result. Young women pumped full of testosterone dominated the world of women's sport for 20 years. And I just didn't want to see that happen again to another generation of our young girls.
In terms of Seb Kerr, you pointed out the IOC, the Olympics, he lost out there. He got very, very few votes. You think that was as a result of his outspoken views, do you?
Yeah, closed ranks, unfortunately. This was voting by the IOC for the IOC, not for international athletes. Seb was an outsider. Kirsty Coventry, very much the continuity candidate, very much backed by the ex-president, who's now given himself a life presidency, so he will be there lurking over her shoulder.
Yeah.
And they have, it's a club of 100 people, just about, making sure that their quality of life and all the buzzes that they get and extras that they get don't change. And when you think about the billions that come into the IOC and the actual track athletes at the Olympics, all the athletes at the Olympics, they get 4% of those billions. And the rest of it is probably spent on all sorts of things, but very, very high expense accounts, let's put it that way.
I don't doubt that. So we are saluting mandatory gender testing in athletics. You might tell me you don't want to answer this, but I had this in the last half an hour. If you don't, I quite understand. Trans patients with beards will be able to be sent to wards in Scottish hospitals thanks to NHS policies and procedures allowing them to self-identify as women. NHS Tayside, Sharon's dignity and privacy policy, states that patients must not normally be placed in mixed-sex wards and they should receive an apology. However, it says that trans people should be sent to wards that match their presentation, a term they defined as the way they dress, the name and the pronouns they currently use. Which begs me to ask you this, who's fought for women's rights in sport. If I've got a wife or a mother or a teenage daughter in that ward, what is wrong, sexist or outrageous of me to absolutely say, I don't want a man, like that Isla Bryson that was the prisoner. What is wrong with us? What has happened to us as a common sense society? That's not safe for women, is it?
No, it's not, is it? I mean, common sense, so not common nowadays. It's really quite scary. I mean, I think we have to understand that biological sex, is very categorical. It's a realistic thing. There are only two sexes. You can't opt out of it. You can't change it. If you're tested, you only ever have to be tested once because we know you can't change your biological sex. So I think that to throw women's dignity and opportunities and voices under the buses of the PC buses, it's always been wrong and it will carry on being wrong. And I think we have to fight for women to have their private spaces. And I will carry on doing that. We still got quite a few sports to do what track and field did. And of course, we've got the IOC to try and persuade to do what track and field have done. But we've got Trump, who's going to insist that women's sport is fair in LA. So hopefully that means that we can, shoehorn it in. But I think we've got to keep on shouting loudly. Part of the problem is that too many people have stayed quiet. Jeremy, this is true. So many people have kept their heads down because there is a tactic which is used by the trans lobby to shame people into silence. And then that means that bad things happen.
But let me ask you a question about that lobby. Look, 60-year-old white male, uneducated on this subject. This is what I don't get. I actually completely support you when you talk about women's rights in sports. I also absolutely support women who have fought for women's rights. But I don't hear from as many of them, I think, when this whole trans debate starts. And I want to hear, as you said, Simon, I want to hear from these women who have fought for women's rights. Why are they not then able to stand up and go, actually, a woman in hospital at her most vulnerable, right?
Yeah,
a teenage girl in a toilet at her most vulnerable. It cannot be deemed as safe for a woman, for a man with a penis, to be in the same room in that instance.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. And statistics will show us that. We've been trying very hard to get the statistics out. There was a Sullivan report recently, wasn't there, about how important sex was when you're recording stats. And particularly with medicine, it's really important because we don't want to send a female for a prostate examination.
Yeah.
We need to know what their biological sex is. What I find so offensive, and you and I are roughly the same age, you're a little younger than me, all right?
No, I am not.
You are younger than me. I'm 62, and you just turned 60, haven't you? So
no, I'm not 60 yet, but let me tell you this, and this is just, you look so good compared to me for 62. Jesus, I'm in trouble, man.
Thank you, honey. But what makes a woman? It is not a blonde wig or a dress. I mean, or a makeup, that is not what makes a woman. It's ridiculous to shoehorn us back into these ridiculous stereotypes, which my generation in particular worked so hard to move away from. And now we're going backwards with this. I mean, I don't care what you want to call yourself, and I don't care what you want to wear, but I'm not going to lie about your biological sex. Sorry.
I'll tell you what, if there is anybody listening who ever gets anywhere near power, this lady should be involved. You speak real common sense. Sharon Davis, thank you so much indeed. Great to see you again. Thank you so much. 23 minutes to 6. Loads of people texting 87222. Start your message with the word talk. We'll do some of those after this break and some of your calls. 0344 499 1000. Back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Your text to Talk Drive, the home of free speech and common sense. Reg Gardner, I love that name. He says, are we allowed to say ladies before gentlemen anymore? I don't know. Do you remember the airline pilots who are now in trouble? You can't say ladies and gentlemen or flyers. My mum, says Leslie, and Kid is in hospital at the moment. She's 94 and will be very upset and confused to share a ward with a trans woman. Hear, hear. Crystal says Peppa Pig's dad likely works from home. Yet another reason to get back to the office. Oink. This is because Peppa Pig's mum is pregnant and nobody knows who the dad is. And somebody went online and said, get Jeremy Kyle to come back with his... No, don't start. Hi, Jez. Jake Berry is wrong when he says sex and gender are different. Sex and gender are the same thing, and there are only two of either. Not sure. Fiona's in Aberdeenshire. Just horrendous what's happening not only in Scottish hospitals but across the public centre in Scotland. They... The SNP are introducing gender identity by the back door with no public consultation. I'm in my early 60s now, but if I was 30 years younger, I'd move south, as Scotland is currently a lost cause. Interesting. David Thomas, Jake Berry said we can't control our borders. Yes, we bloody well can. Labour and Tories just don't want to. Ernie, Jez, if the criminal is identifying as transgender before they commit the crime, maybe they should be treated differently. But it seems to me that these men who commit sex crimes then say they're trans because they don't want to go to a male prison. They will be beaten if there's not segregation. Surely the courts should be able to see this. Aha, Ernie, you're talking about common sense. Courts see common sense. Don't be ludicrous. Donald said drill, baby, drill, says Pete. Kimmy said drill, maybe drill. She's called Kimmy, but thank you. Sheila from Burnley. Jez, slave labour. Let's hope the people or future generations making the solar panels don't ask for money from the UK in years to come. Very good point. Carl's in Derbyshire. Kemi Bednock. has been given countless open goal opportunities from this hapless Labour government, yet she's still back in the changing room, limbering up. I'm with you, Carl. I need more. I want to hear more. David H. What does the H stand for? The trans issue in NHS Scotland. It's not a woman with a beard. What? It is not a woman with a beard will be allowed on women's wards. It's a man with a beard masquerading as a woman who will be allowed on women's wards, says David in Oxfordshire. And finally, Julian Hall. Great to hear Sharon online. She's such a beacon of sensibility and supporting only women and girls in both female designated sports and safe areas. Putting a bit of lippy on a skirt doesn't make a male into a female any more than painting a Fiat Cinquecento red makes it a Ferrari. I like the analogy of Fiat Cinquecento. You didn't think I could say that, did you? But I can. 18 minutes to 6, 0344 499 1000 to the phone lines in Derbyshire. Garfield, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good, never better. Living the dream. Listen, excuse the pun, but let's put this subject to bed about bearded ladies. A man as a prostrate that can produce, pardon the rude word, semen, and a woman doesn't have. If they can transplant a prostrate into a woman and she can produce semen with their own chemical reaction and produce a baby, then that answers everything.
Thank you, Garfield. You've managed to say a word that my mother used to think she'd burn in hell if she said, "Heman." My mother, she would refuse that. Anyway, thank you, sir. Garfield, I mean, honestly, yes. Let's go to Miranda in Cumbria. Thank God. Miranda, please don't say semen during the programme. How are you?
No, I won't, no. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Not bad. Trying to recover from Garfield's call. What can we do for you?
Well, one of my relatives was a forensic scientist.
No, sorry, you're going to have to do me a favour. You're going to have to move your mouth back from the phone because it's...
Sorry.
What?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but don't go next door. Start again.
One of my relatives was a forensic scientist, and several years ago, on a female-only ward, they allowed a man who identified as a woman onto the ward. Now, one of the patients was raped, and essentially the nurses didn't tell the police that there was a man on the ward. They'd looked at, obviously it was a locked ward, you have to put a code in, things to get in. So essentially what happened eventually was they couldn't see anybody on the CCTV coming into the ward.
Yeah.
So that eventually the nurses did let it slip that there was a man identified as a woman. Subsequently, that man was charged with the rape of one of the female patients. And I just think that they're just opening up a whole load of trouble of women being abused on these wards. And there's a reason why there are only female wards.
I don't understand. I'm really delighted to take your call. I've said it quite loudly. I'll say it calmly. I don't understand why there is not more abhorrence to this. There are women in hospitals, women in prisons, women in public spaces who are endangered. Their safety is endangered. If you allow a man with a penis, whether he's got a penis, right? And it doesn't matter about a wig or a pair of tights or whatever. And I don't understand why women are not totally united. I think it's an absolute joke, man. I don't understand it.
The thing is, most men should be united because there are lots of fathers and brothers out there as well, and husbands. And I don't know what the government realises that there are obviously a lot of husbands. Like my husband he feels exactly the same way as me. There are XX and there is an XY, and essentially there should be separate wards for male and female. And
could not agree more. Miranda, whereabouts in Cumbria? Beautiful part of the country. Whereabouts?
It's near Ulverston.
I love it. Nobody wants to say where they live. Thank you so much indeed, Miranda, for coming on Drive Time on Talk. Let's go to Sussex. It's posh there. Anne, couple of minutes on Talk Drive. What you got?
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I can't tell you how angry I am, and you're right. Why are we not fighting more loudly about this? 200 years ago, a woman was in the most vulnerable position and had no rights. With the way we're going, women will still have no rights. There's nothing worse than being on a ward with men, because it's embarrassing, especially the way some men behave. What really gets to me Oh, is my phone dying? Sorry.
No, you're okay. No.
Yeah, no, what really gets to me is that I read by Norman Vincent Peale many years ago that people who are evil gravitate to positions of power. And honestly, we've got people with their own agendas in power across our country and across the world, it seems.
I don't mean to be rude, but how old are you, Anne?
Oh, dear. Well, I won't see 80 again.
Amazing. When you look at some of the things that seem to preoccupy our politicians, net zero targets that aren't achievable or bankrupt our country, doing right by trans athletes to the detriment of female athletes, allowing people to come to this country who are not escaping war-torn misery, fact, and treating them so much better than people who have worked all their life. When you look at that now, where you are at the state of your life, what stage of your life, what do you think?
Jeremy, I think it's shocking, but I have to say to you, the one thing you mustn't be in this country is an older woman. You know, you can be, you remember Blair's Babes, you can be young, you can now be any gender, and you can be any nationality. But older white women, goodness me, no, don't have any of them around. You won't see them on television programmes very often, unless it's Helen Mirren. Yeah, what do I think? I think I told you about Alice Bailey and her agenda, who was born in the 1880s. Well, it's happening now. Our leaders are following what she wanted, to get rid of sex and marriage and Christianity and Judaism. It's all happening.
I love having you on. Thank you so much indeed, Anne in Sussex. Keep it real, keep it talk. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you for your calls. More on the next hour. Talk. A Jezza is a Jezza. Oh, a geezer is a geezer. I read that wrong. Such an idiot. Talk Jez. A geezer is a geezer. Even Del Boy knew this. 0344 499 1000. Coming next, Sam Allard with the daily update of Drive Time Sport. Prediction was right again. Back in 3.
This is a difficult one because he did say that he wanted Sadiq Khan. He said that someone should kill Sadiq Khan, and now he's trying to defend it in terms of free speech. Wanting someone to be killed is the opposite of free speech. That if there's going to be something that shuts someone up, it's a threat of this.
And again, do I think that he genuinely wanted Sadiq Khan killed? No, but it's totally an unacceptable, inappropriate, and let's face it, criminal language, isn't it, to say that?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK, JK till 7. The amazing Kevin O'Sullivan here from 7. But right now, Ames, push the button, please.
Sport Summary on Talk.
We say a very good evening to a sporting broadcasting legend, Sam Ellar. Good evening.
Good evening, Jeremy.
Please repeat after me. Jeremy Kyle.
Jeremy Kyle.
You are the most extraordinary sporting prediction expert.
What did you get right this time?
I said England would beat Latvia 3-0 and Harry Kane would score. I think go back to yesterday. Did you not hear that?
I mean, yeah, predicting England to beat Latvia and Harry Kane to score is just easy and obvious. And
have you had a haircut?
Yeah, I have had a haircut.
Who cut it? The council? What's going on?
Hey, what do you mean? This is a sharp fade. This is a sharp skin fade.
What does that mean?
Basically, they go completely like all off here, and then you got a little bit on top.
I can't have a fade because my hair's falling out. So England last night.
What do you go for when you? What do you ask your barber when you go in?
I don't go to a barber. Somebody comes to my house.
Right, what do you ask for? And that person can't. I mean, your missus does it, doesn't she? I mean, that barnet is terrible. I mean, goodness me, one shirt, terrible barnet. What's going on, JK?
One shirt, did you say?
You wear the same blue shirt every day, don't you?
I wore pink, you total idiot, yesterday.
I'm going to be in the studio tomorrow, Jez. Why don't you try like a Shacket t-shirt vibe? Why don't you try and be a bit more younger tomorrow, like a bit more different? Try and mix it up. Why don't you get a nice Shacket? Just relax. Not everything has to be so serious all the time.
Good, but I have to be because I'm going back on television starting next week, so I'm starting to look smart again.
What are you doing on TV next week?
What?
What are you doing on TV next week?
I'm on ITV next week. I'll tell you more about it later. England beating Latvia 3-0 at Wembley. 2 out of 2. Thomas Tuchel. Has much changed, though? Seriously, can we get inspired? I heard a really interesting comment overnight. Merson was saying he can't win the World Cup playing Premier League football. He's only got, it's really interesting, I don't know if Ryan knows this, he's got 8 games between now and the World Cup. He's had a quarter of the camps and a quarter of the games. He can have learnt nothing against 2 teams who have parked the bus. Is it possible in international football to put your mark on a team that quickly?
No, I don't think so, Jez. I mean, it's something I mentioned yesterday that pretty much all of the games he's going to have, they're going to be these World Cup qualifiers, which are going to be against kind of, teams that are going to park the bus, and you come up against a good team at a tournament. And the first time England will face a team that want to press, want to be aggressive, it'll be the first time Thomas Tuchel's had to face it in a major tournament. That's why lots of people think that kind of a successful team, obviously you want to have good players, but it's more about creating the culture, the environment, the good vibes, if you like. That's more, that kind of core element is more important to a team than, being tactically great, because as you just mentioned, it's hard to be tactically great when these lads are rocking up for 10 days at a time and you haven't got much time for them. The problem is Latvia and Albania, 2 teams that part of the bus. Did we learn anything? Unfortunately, the simple short answer is probably not, Jeremy. I'm trying to think of one thing that we learned that we saw different. It's hard to think of anything, Jeremy, and this is the problem that Thomas Tuchel and England are going to face over the next couple of months.
What's your view of a German managing the England football team?
I didn't have a problem with it. I know I'm in the minority here. I just wanted the best head coach to take charge of England. I think Thomas Tuchel is probably the best head coach that we realistically could have got. I personally want the best manager, so I didn't have an issue with it.
I'm surprised Eddie Howe wasn't interviewed. I'm going to be honest with you here. What's happened to Emma Raducanu? Injury-free, coach-free. She says she's found a competitive spirit, smashed the 17th seed in Miami to reach her first quarter-final in a massive tournament for a long, long time. She looks like the real deal. She looks like the kid that won the US Open all of a sudden. She'll lose tonight, obviously.
We spoke about it yesterday, didn't we, Jez? And we said it's small steps, very, very small steps. But she was brilliant once again yesterday, beating her American opponent, needing just 24 minutes, winning the first set, so winning 6-1, 6-3. It's the first time since that US Open triumph, Jez, you mentioned, in 2021, that she's won 4 WTA main draw matches in a row. That's quite incredible to think that in 4 years she hasn't managed to win 4 in a row, but she's managed to get there. She's now going to face the number 4 seed, Jessica Pegula, in the last stage.
Jessica what?
Pegula?
Pegula?
Well, what are you going with?
Pegula.
Okay, sorry, tomato. But it's small steps. She's winning. She looks fit. She looks healthy.
You can't say that. You're objectifying her sexuality by saying she looks fit. That's dreadful.
So silly. She's no injury. She's playing pain-free. She's got a smile on her face, and she's looking comfortable.
And do you know what I'd say if I had on the phone right now? I'd say this to her. I go, Emma, I have sat and listened to you cancel or get rid of or change coaches about 14 times. This is the first time since the US Open you've hung out with your friends, you've got no coach, and you've just gone out and hit balls. I think don't get a coach, Emma Raducanu. Just stick to what you know.
Maybe it's that kind of, take the pressure off, trying to go into it a little bit more laid back. Maybe for so long she's been trying to find the right formulas, trying to overthink things outside tennis. Maybe the simple element is go out there, enjoy yourself, play your strokes, and because one thing that's for certain, she's obviously an incredibly talented tennis player.
Got to be.
Yeah, of course.
Listen, where did this stupid story come from? A 63,000 capacity stadium is to be built for the 2032 Brisbane Olympics in controversial move that has sparked outrage over a river in Queensland known for its large saltwater crocodiles has been chosen to host rowing events for the Olympics. Why would all the rowers will get eaten? How's that going to work?
And this is the thing though, Jez. The plans will see the new stadium become Brisbane's home for cricket, with the famous Gabba Stadium to be demolished following the games. Now, we know over in Australia, cricket is a part of their culture. Yes. They love it. And the Gabba it's iconic.
It doesn't say that here. They're getting rid of the Gabba to build something on a river that's to do with crocodiles. I'm a bit lost.
Yeah. The plan, so Jez, the new 60,000 seater stadium, as you may, will be built in Brisbane as the centrepiece, the 2032 Olympic Games. But the plans will see the new stadium become Brisbane's home of cricket, with the famous Gabba Stadium, which is currently where cricket's being played, going to be demolished following the games. Now, England take the real glass half full English approach. England's record in the Gabba is awful. Demolish it. Get rid of it. I don't want to see England go there ever again after this current Ashes series.
Who do you support in cricket, by the way?
My team is Middlesex.
Somerset for me. So it's a pleasure to have you. Somebody said yesterday, what a mesmerising presence. We got this text message after you gone. It was a young lady. She said, you are a mesmerising presence on the television and the radio.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I think she was in care. I think she was in a sort of secure ward somewhere. But you're coming in tomorrow, are you?
Yeah. I'm doing a show in the show. I'll be in the studio with you tomorrow. Yeah.
We're looking forward to it, Sammy. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely man. I'd like to apologise for my lack of intelligence with those two stories. That was my mistake. 0344 499 1000. We are on with Talk Drive. We've an hour to go. Lined up in the next hour, Russell Quirk. He's not a second-hand car salesman. He's a legendary political commentator. We've got Kinsey Schofield. She's on. We'll have a laugh. Your calls as well. 0344 499 1000. Your text to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. News at 6 next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK on the home of, common sense and free speech and your ability to say whatever you want. Thank you so much indeed for all your calls. Oh, the machine's broken. Brilliant. 0344 499 1000 is our telephone number. A voice note list today is Ryan. He feels stripped of his dignity. He'd like a voice note. If you could start it with, how was it when you got home last night? Try that in this hour. Maybe there's a prize up for grabs. How was it when you got home last night? 0344 499 1000 on the WhatsApp to Ryan. Make me laugh. Text 87222. Whenever you want to laugh, there's only one thing to do. Russell Quirk, how are you?
Well, I'm glad to be your jester.
No, we love you. We love having you on. We're very grateful to have you on. I was going to start by talking about Kemi Badenoch and Rachel Thieves and the Spring Statement, but I'm going to start differently.
Go on. You're surprising me again.
He says to me, he says, we've done everything outside, we know what we're going to talk about, and then I just throw something in which proves that he hasn't been listening and he isn't on the ball. Trans patients with beards can be sent towards female wards in Scottish hospitals thanks to NHS policies and procedures allowing them to self-identify as women. NHS Tayside's dignity and privacy policy states today that patients must not normally be placed in mixed-sex wards, and any that are should receive an apology, but BUT underlined. It says that trans people should be sent to wards that match their presentation, a term defined as the way they dress, their name, and the pronouns that they currently use. So we've spoken a lot about this before. It's really simple. We've both got teenage daughters. So my daughter or my wife, your daughter or your wife, are going to be in a hospital, maybe in a vulnerable position, and a man with a penis could be in the bed next to them.
And a beard.
Honestly, mate, I genuinely despair.
So have we...
This is Scotland.
These people, particularly in Scotland, have not learnt the lessons of Nicola Sturgeon.
Not at all.
Her career was completely blighted by the fact that she insisted, and we could see that she wasn't very comfortable with it in the end because she realised that she had no argument. She was advocating men who identify as women being in women's prisons, even if they were sexual predators, even if they were rapists. So that destroyed her career. Yet those similar people...
Is it Swiney or Swinney?
Swinney, John Swinney. But similar people...
Not learned the lesson.
Similar people have, yes, kind of had no regard for that and decided that... And don't forget, this is about being able to self-identify. So you can almost wake up one morning, decide that you are a woman instead of a man, identify as such, and then do what you like. It should be no surprise to us that there is now a large proportion of sex offenders in this country that identify, so men sex offenders, that now conveniently identify as women on purpose to game the system, particularly in Scotland actually, so that they can end up having a cushy number through the justice system.
And this is my point, and I've said this all afternoon, and it's been met with some actual support. All the people that I hear, and quite rightly, arguing for women's rights, go very quiet when this starts. I would have thought that this is an example of how women could be put in very, very vulnerable positions. Why is there not an outcry for women in this instance and women's safety?
Yeah, there was something that I read at the weekend where someone was trying to advance the argument that, this whole thing about men dressing as women and being in women's changing rooms and exposing themselves and then committing offences in those changing rooms is not a thing, apparently. It's a myth. That's something apparently that the right have put forward as a kind of myth. But you know what? This particular journalist listed all of the incidents that have been perpetrated by men in wigs and lipstick that are in women's changing rooms whereby they had committed offences, assault, sexual offence and so on. The list was extensive, I can tell you.
So how can they write an article saying it doesn't exist then?
No, I'm saying the people on the left would argue against it, whereas the reality is this is a problem. And look, yes, as fathers of teenage girls, we obviously don't want those individuals in those changing rooms. But the world's gone mad. If we're now favouring someone that decides, particularly if they want to manipulate a system, that they are a woman instead of a man, which, by the way, shock horror, you can't do that. You cannot.
So can we point out
cannot be a woman?
They're a criminal.
You're either a man or a woman. There's only two. You have
Yes.
to, and you can't even decide. You are born as you are. It's not a choice anyway. But yes, we are now favouring the whimsical wants and needs of people with mental illnesses. Let's be honest, people with mental illnesses instead of women and indeed girls. Again, have we learnt nothing from Rochdale and Telford and so on? You know, protecting our young females in this country seems to be absolutely not a priority.
I don't understand. We seem to protect all sorts of people. This to me. Listen to Mark in Devon. Jeremy, there's times when I feel absolutely ashamed of being a man. Why is it that some of us feel the need to try and take away and infiltrate the spaces and structures in society that women fought so hard for? You hardly ever hear about this thing happening the other way round. And the reasons are obvious. These men disgust me. Thankfully, it's slowly feeling like we've hit peak wokeness and that common sense is coming and bringing us back from the brink. I bloody well hope so, because I would love to have John Swiney or whatever his name is. Explain to me, you idiot, how you can possibly justify to women that you're not putting them in a vulnerable position in your quest to what? What is even the common sense in saying that Isla Bryson was a rapist?
A rapist, yes.
Right. He
went to a women's
forced
prison.
himself on two women whose lives will be blighted forever, and Nicola Sturgeon put him in a female prison because he put a wig on and a pair of tights.
And if we want to extend this ridiculous scenario in terms of you being able to identify as a man as a woman or vice versa, where does that stop? Can we identify as whatever we want? I mean, you know, I don't know.
I'm
animals?
Identifying as a radio presenter today.
You're not doing a bad job,
no.
I have to say.
I mean,
but you know, can we identify as, I don't know, can I identify as black?
I don't know the answer.
Presumably I
Don't
can.
you remember the outrage when Piers Morgan said, "I'm identifying as a black one-legged lesbian"? The world went absolutely nuts.
Yeah. So if I'm a criminal, can I just identify as innocent and get off?
Don't know, mate. Weird.
Well, no, presumably that's the natural extension.
This says, could you be aware that Russell has to be clear by 6:25?
I've got an event at the brewery in East London. It's a property event. See you there, everyone.
Oh, lovely.
It's the What House Awards winners' dinner. There you go.
Wow. Well, I won't be letting you out
Basically-
until 6:35.
Free drinks.
So you've dealt with that quite well. You expect me to... Let's talk about Badenoch. So she was on MG this morning.
Kev, Kev, did I say Kev? I'm so used to being on a proper show, sorry. You can throw whatever you like at me, Jeremy.
Did you just say what I thought? I found you, polished you, and gave you opportunity.
I'm your protege, and I throw it back at you.
Oh, my God. No, so Kemi Badenoch was on Mike Graham this morning, and one of my criticisms of Badenoch, and I've been really quite vociferous about this, is that I don't believe she's been vocal enough. I don't believe this. It takes 10 months to find out what you need to say to the British public, and I keep saying to the Tories, what's happening is your ground is being stolen by Reform, who are far more vocal. Today, she came on. One of the big things, and I'd love the Essex response to this, is about fracking. This is what she said. Have a listen.
A lot of people think that we should be fracking, but I also know that many communities don't want it where they are, that it causes problems for them. We need to make sure that we've got local consent for things like that, not just imposing it. So how do we make sure we've got a plan that goes across the board that works, that is not going to bankrupt us? That's what I'm working on now.
That's what I'm working on now. OK, so the two examples here are Donald Trump drill baby drill. We've got gas and oil, billions of pounds worth, but no, we're with the government who seemingly believe that wind farms stealing land from farmers will lower your bills. No, the bills have gone up, you idiots, because it can't make enough because nobody planned and will have to import it. Why is she not putting her neck on the line and saying, here we go. I'll tell you why. Because she's in charge of a party that doesn't know its arse from its elbow, and she's being an... I don't believe that she can last. I don't believe it for a minute.
Look, I think the Conservative Party made a mistake in electing her as leader. I think it should have been probably the best of a bad bunch, and it should have been Robert Jenrick. I don't think Robert Jenrick has perhaps got the total authenticity that he should, because 2 or 3 years ago he was not the right-wing anti-ECHR guy that he is now. But put that to one side for a second. The problem with Kemi, and I'm sure she means well, I just don't think she has the gravitas. I don't think she has the authenticity. I don't think she has the political mind. What we need is someone with conviction that actually already has an ideology and a vision. I don't think you need to sit there thinking about what you're going to be.
Well, this is what I was going to say. I completely agree. I thought you'd been listening to me, because I don't care their political persuasion. Maybe it's Nigel, maybe it's somebody else, maybe somebody on Labour will surprise me. I want a politician to stand up, put what they believe in to the British people and say, Trump-esque, I will do this despite legal challenges, despite judges and and pressure groups and newspapers and whatever.
Exactly.
And if you don't want that, don't vote for me. We don't have that. We talked earlier about Thatcher. In the end, she sacked people who disagreed, and in the end, they all sacked her. But that conviction politician, I believe, and I've said this about radio presenters and television presenters with the way the world's changed, I believe that most politicians are so focused on focus groups and who to upset the least that they think about everything. They don't shoot from the hip because they're so concerned. They go down the same line. And honestly, they're so busy trying to keep their jobs, they forget to do their bloody jobs. I really believe that.
Jez, I got it right that time.
Well done. Sorry, Julia?
I truly believe that where politicians back in the 70s, 80s and 90s had a view and a vision and conviction around an ideology, and there was an authenticity to that. Since Alistair Campbell, he is to blame for this, what I call, we all call post-truth politics. Post-truth politics. No, spin, basically, is, right, let's see which way the wind is blowing, let's look at polls, let's talk to the media, let's see where we need to position ourselves
let's go
to get some votes.
No, absolutely.
But rather than saying, as Thatcher did, and I know we're going back a long time, she hasn't been Prime Minister, obviously, since 1991, but what we had with Thatcher was someone that believed what she believed in, said it, and you either fell in behind or you didn't.
Or you got sacked.
She did win 3 landslide elections as a consequence. What we now have is a bunch of populists, and we don't really know what they stand for. And because we don't know what they stand for, you've now got, you look at Rishi Sunak versus Keir Starmer. I mean, there is nothing between them, really, in terms of ideology. Neither of them, Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Precisely. Neither of them did anything about immigration. Both of them raised taxes.
Yep.
Both of them destroyed the country by way of the economy. Both of them were soft on crime. We call them the Labour and the Conservative mob, if you like, the uni party. And I think we should pay big attention to that on the basis that I think the old party politics of Labour versus the Conservatives, as those two really being the only alternatives, that's gone. That's finished. Because there's nothing between them. There is no vision, no authenticity, no ideology. I'd like to have thought, not because I'm necessarily a supporter, but because they are almost the revolution that's coming up next, reform would have been the answer. But look, we can rehearse this for the next 20, 30 minutes, no doubt, in terms of what Reform have done to themselves over the last few weeks to split themselves, destroy their credibility, move to the left, big question marks over Nigel Farage, whether he should now be in place. I mean, I genuinely worry about the political direction of this country and the state of it. Who's going to save it, Jeremy?
Completely agree with you. Quarter past 6. Let's go to the phone lines. I completely agree. Saeed is in London. Saeed, you're on with Jeremy Kyle, and Russell Quirk is here. What can we do for you, fella?
Yeah, look, I think women should play women-only sports. But I just think that the amount of radio time and print time we spend on this is just ridiculous. The US has about 510,000 athletes who compete at an elite college level. Of these, 10 are transgender. So we should address this issue and move on. Similarly, in prisons, 0.1% of the prisoners are trans. So when we talk about prisoners, I think we need to focus on why are so many people there, how do we make sure they don't reoffend, etc.
I'm gonna
trans issue.
Saeed, I'm gonna find myself disagreeing with you. Have you got a teenage daughter, fella?
No, I don't.
Well, I do, and let me tell you, if my teenage daughter is in hospital, and I'm being completely serious, and I appreciate your call, I do not want to. I think it is absolutely fundamentally wrong to just say there's a few thousand or 1%. I don't want, a man with a penis in a female ward with my daughter. And furthermore, answer this. You are saying, let's just concentrate on why people are committing crime. I don't disagree with that, but hold on 1 second. We're getting to a point now where men who can attack women will say that they identify as a woman to get a more lenient, cushy time, and women are being attacked. That is an outrage, Saeed.
No, but again, the numbers, you need to back it up with how many trans women are they who are attacking. And you will find that their offence rates are negligible and are in line with the rest of the population. So
in line with the rest of the population? Yes. What do you mean by that?
Look, if the biggest threat to your teenage daughter are men, cis men, right? That is what we should all be focused on. Not this incredibly tiny minority of evil trans women who might do something. What you're missing.
Can I ask you a question? How many men in wigs in women's prisons that have been done for rape do you think is acceptable to the female population of that prison? And how many? How many is okay? 5, 20, 50?
You tell me how many are they?
Well, it doesn't matter, because I think if there's one or more, it's one or more too many. Let me give you another example, Saeed. Now, hang on one second.
You know basic statistics.
Let me just give me... No, it doesn't matter about statistics. I don't want a man that has raped women in either a women's prison, and I do not want any man in a wig with a penis in a changing room with my daughters. And the fact that you think it's okay because it's only a few of them, I'm gobsmacked by. Let me just give you, Saeed, let me just give you one quick example as well. You talk about women in sport. I tell you why it's important that we highlight this and we keep banging on about it. My daughter is 15, as Jeremy says, teenage daughter. She plays paddle. You know, paddle at quite a high level. She trains 5 days a week. She flies around Europe training. She is incredibly hardworking and disciplined. She went to a tournament last year and got into the final, and she was knocked out by somebody. Guess who that person was? A trans woman. A man masquerading as a woman in the final of a paddle tournament. Guess what my daughter said to me on the way home as a consequence of that knockout? Dad, why am I bothering? Do you think that's okay for women's sport? You think that's okay?
Women's sports should be for biological women. I agree with that.
Okay. But it's okay to have biological men in women's prisons?
Look, I do not think that should be right either. Right?
You've changed your tune side. It's not what you said at the beginning of this conversation.
No. I didn't. No, you're misinterpreting or misrepresenting my point. I am saying that these issues are a very small, marginal proportion of the issue we have.
I don't think. Listen, Saeed. Everybody is entitled on this show to have an opinion, and I appreciate your call. I would simply say, as a father of a teenage daughter, I do agree with Russell absolutely on this. One man dressed as a woman in a female ward that could threaten any woman is, in my opinion, too much. Really appreciate you coming on this side. Really important we get all sides. Let's go to Northampton. Tracy, you're on Talk Drive. Russell's with me.
Hello, darling. I think you're just bloody marvellous. You ought to have your own TV show, interviewing people, politicians, because you're brilliant at it.
Well, I'm going to say something that's going to shock everybody.
He's been doing it for a little while.
Why doesn't everybody just take a chill pill and wait just a few weeks?
Well,
Crack on.
I'm telling you what, you are the next sort of like person we need to get on telly to get things sorted.
Wow.
Well, I'm ringing up about the immigrants.
And that's right, are you talking to Jeremy or to
Well,
me?
you're talking to Russell then, weren't you?
I'm talking to Jeremy.
And who's the other person in the studio?
Russell.
Do you think he deserves a TV show? Say no.
Well, he could be your sidekick.
I can make his tea. Can I? Thanks.
I'm sorry, I'm literally going to choke with
That's
joy.
basically where I am right now. Yes.
Can you wait till I say you can speak? Right, Trace, crack on. Trace, what you got?
Right, immigrants, right? I am absolutely... I get so angry, right? How they're coming over here on them boats. Do you know on Sunday there was 335 immigrants on Sunday that came over? That was just Sunday, okay? And I cannot believe that we're welcoming them. Come on over, we're going to give you a mobile phone, a house to live in, you know, food, drink, you have what you want. We welcome you here. What about us as the British? The British people are not fighting for our country. And I'll tell you what, this ain't going to be Britain soon anymore because they're like ants and they're taking over. And I'm telling you this now, Prince Charles, right, ought to be ashamed of
King
himself.
Charles.
Whatever he is, right?
Constitutional monarch can't get involved.
Well,
you said, listen to me.
He ought to because...
I think
if immigrants come in this country, they will take over. We won't have a royal family.
I think that we would all agree calmly that there seems to be so much wokerati, so much ideology, so much madness in the world, Russ, at the moment. Not in the world, actually, in this country. That and this isn't a platform to call for change. It's a platform to allow people like Saeed to have a different opinion. I respect that.
That's what I love about this channel.
But I will say this: I do believe that a time is fast approaching when the docile British normal public, everyday men and women with beards, the men, are not prepared any longer to be stripped of Well, almost their dignity, and whilst we've founded
and their opinion.
Thanks, Trace. Whilst we were founded as a country to be fair and to help others, I get all that. But the basic truth is this: we can't afford to provide our own people with what our own people need, and that is not going to go away, and that is why the pressure will build and build.
Yeah, it will, but I think we're starting to see what this is now all about. There's an economic argument from the left, which is wrong and incorrect, that we need immigrants because our birth rate is not high enough, and those immigrants are going to prop up the economy of the country. That actually 25 years ago was probably true, because we genuinely were bringing in people that were engineers, doctors.
I've done my bit for the babies. I've had 6.
Well, you have, and hopefully you're stopping there. But anyway, but unfortunately, what we've ended up with post-Blair, post-1997, of course, is literally an open-door policy. So no checks and balances, boat people and so on. So of course, we now have a large proportion of immigration that comes to this country, legal and illegal, which is not contributing to the country. The other problem is, I think, is that there's now a political ideology on the left, I think, that because it's almost, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, the whole kind of great replacement theory thing, but I think there is some truth in those on the left that I think that if they allow this open door policy, they are effectively creating the Labour voters of the future.
I agree.
It's exactly what happened in the US.
I completely agree. Just in terms of what that woman said, do you remember Dame Edna Everage?
Yes.
Do you remember when she had that old woman in a dress called Madge with the badge?
Yes, the old lady. Is that
Russ,
you and me?
Russ on the bus. I can see it all now. A whole new thing. So you're off to a property thing, are you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, with my tail between my legs now. My ego suitably deflated.
No, you'll be absolutely fine. Come down with me. Russell Quirk, thank you very much. You're on tomorrow, aren't you?
Thursday and Friday, I'm covering for Ian Collins. Everybody, 1 to 4. Be better than this.
He's not wrong. See you in 3.
Something that I have worried about for years. I spoke about it during the leadership contest. It was part of my conference speech. We've got to look after people who are vulnerable. We've got to look after women and girls where they are in dangerous situations, and we also need to see justice done. And I don't think that we have seen full justice done. We had a task force 2023 that found about 500 new perpetrators. We need to make sure that we catch everyone, and that requires a national inquiry.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
JK on Drive till 7. Kev is here with his political asylum from 7. Petrie from 10. And don't forget, tomorrow morning, he's a legend and he's back. Mike Graham, 6 o'clock, nice and early, my friends, with Morning Glory. Hello to Robert Taylor. Scottish men wear kilts. Well done. So if the new rules also include how you dress, then presumably 85% of Scots will be in female wards. Rob in Lincolnshire. Tony's in Sussex. Jez and Russ. Yes, we've learned, and a very long time ago, but the lefty Scottish government haven't and never will, and they don't care until they're thrown out of government. Love the show. Claire's in Buckley. Hello, Claire. My council tax has gone up by 9.5%. My water bill has gone up by 35 quid a month. I work full-time and pay my taxes. I would rather my taxes go towards fracking and bringing my energy costs down than paying millions towards keeping illegal immigrants in warm, cosy hotels. Frack, baby, frack, I say. Couldn't agree more, Claire. Hello to David. Even just David Clacton. I now identify as a cyborg and I'm not governed by the same laws as others. This will be their next argument about the law. Joanna from Salisbury, I think, nails this. Would you put a fox in the hen house? No, but you would put a rapist in a woman's prison, fully intact, lunchbox and all. Honestly, Joe in Salisbury could not agree with you more. 0344 499 1000. Let's move the discussion on. Much has been made about the whole net zero madness. In my mind, I have a very strong opinion. Others have different opinions. I know people care about the environment. Maybe at 60 I don't care as much as others, but I do understand that longevity is important. What I don't want is something that is pure ideology that is essentially going to bankrupt this country still further. David Turver. It is Turver. Energy analyst. That sounds very intelligent. David, a very good evening. Welcome to Talk Drive.
Good evening to you, Jeremy.
Oh, it's you again. Oh, there he is. I remember him. I remember him. I said, who's that? You went, you'll remember him. It's him. It's the energy analyst. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm slightly confused about the shirt. I've got 11 across. What's 14 down? Nobody got the joke.
Well, I had to search through my shirts for one that didn't have a logo on it, because that's the...
Can I get, before we talk about solar panels and this ridiculous shoddy heat pump story today, can I just ask you as an analyst whether I'm wrong here? So this farmer tax is presumably an attempt by Labour to grab land to build wind farms, which everybody tells me, and you would know, cannot and will not provide enough electricity energy for us to have lower bills. We will then thus have to import from other countries, which will increase our bills. And in the midst of all of this, we've got underground billions of pounds worth of oil and gas, which we don't do because that'll upset the friends of the earth, and we're skinned.
Broadly speaking, yes. Yeah, because as we all know, the wind doesn't blow all the time.
Nope.
So no matter how many wind turbines we build, we'll never be able to match supply and demand. So we either need to have a gas backup, or some of the crazier ideas that we have during the time when it's too windy, we make hydrogen with the surplus electricity, which is hugely expensive, or we import it from abroad.
What about nuclear?
And because we have to have two systems, then that's almost bound to be more expensive than one. What about nuclear? Well, I'm a great advocate of nuclear. I think it's clean energy, it's very reliable energy. Its downside is that it can't yet flex up and down as much as demand does, so it would need some extra, probably gas, so we can match supply and demand all the time. But the trouble is that we sort of over-regulate nuclear, so our nuclear costs are 3 or 4 times more expensive than building the same thing in Korea or in the United Arab Emirates.
What's your view on? People get really sort of, oh my God, fracking. We just threw this out at 4 o'clock and it went mad. Of course, Trump arrives at the White House inauguration speech and says, apart from there are two sexes, he says it's drill, baby, drill. I mean, I understand the hypocrisy of a little bit of what I'm trying to say, but, you know, you have politicians saying we need more houses, but not in my constituency. We have people saying, here's this, you know, we're rich in this stuff, but we don't want to upset the environmentalists. Somebody suggested earlier, I'll throw it at you, you might laugh. What about dealing with the people who are against fracking by compensating them and making sure that their bills are lower as a compensation for fracking in their area?
Well, of course, in America, generally speaking, the people who own land, they would get a payment from those who they're allowed to drill on their land. So I'm not opposed to making payments to people in the local area where fracking happens. In fact, I think that would probably be a good thing. I think it makes sense for us to, you know, frack baby frack, to use the vernacular. Not least because even the Climate Change Committee admits that we will still be using gas in 2050. That's what this gas with carbon capture stuff is.
And we've got gas in the North Sea, right?
And I say, well, you know, we might as well use what we've got of our own.
What is the ideology? You are an energy analyst, and it's great to have you on, and I mean that. What is the ideology? All right, let's talk about financial. What's the financial ideology between you've got natural gas, people might have to bite the bullet to a degree, but we're skint, and this will help the finances of the United Kingdom?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't politicians understand that, David?
I don't know why they don't understand it. So I did a piece about 12 months ago where I looked at the cost of green jobs. So there's all this talk about green jobs. So if I looked at the wind and solar sectors and then how much subsidy we apply to the wind and solar sectors, and each job costs us roughly £250,000 per year. God. So we can't afford that. Whereas if we had jobs in fracking, those wouldn't be subsidised. They'd be high earning, high paying. The productivity of that sector is really high, much higher than the rest of the economy. And either we use the gas ourselves, which helps our balance of payments because we wouldn't be importing it, or if we get really good at it, we can probably export as well, which would turbocharge the balance of payments.
So you can sort of understand. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea, but you sort of understand increasingly the businessman that is Donald Trump going, right, so it's costing us that because we're not, so I'm going to drill because I've got all that, so I'm going to make it, and if I don't use the drill, I'm going to sell it. I mean, I think that this country, I mean, the two stories that we were going to talk about with you, I mean, fracking's great. There's this, I mean, this story about cowboy builders will be free to fit heat pumps in new homes under net zero plans. The government has been warned. From 2027, new homes will be fitted with a heat pump as standard under rules that are expected to be introduced within weeks. They can sod off if they want my house there. But while heat pumps installed under government grant schemes in existing homes must be fitted by accredited technicians, there will be no such standards for new homes. Households have been warned that as a result, rogue traders may be fitting their heat pumps, potentially leading to a mis-selling scandal. Oh my God, it gets worse, this country, doesn't it? Heat pumps.
It's crazy.
Are you going to tell me that if I buy a new house after 2027, I've got to have a heat pump?
Yes, that's.
Well, I'm not going to. I'm going to tear it out. Why would I want a heat pump? I want a heat pump.
I know, but you might struggle because I think there's stopping new houses also being fitted with a gas connection. It is crazy.
They're stopping new houses getting a gas connection? Let me tell you, if there's rogue traders, there'll be one that will sort you out a gas connection. Do you fear the net zero? Genuine question, but meant to ask you last time. Not put in the right way. Do you think this will blow up and end, or do you think it will carry on and on and on? Do you think it would die if this government finished? Do you think that there is a degree of sense coming back amongst the British public, or even, you know, the elected politicians, or not?
I think the elected politicians are starting to see a bit of sense. So if we go back to sort of like 2023, Rishi Sunak sort of did a very mild backpedal on some of the more draconian measures on, you know, banning cars and banning boilers and that sort of thing, and he got sort of like roasted for it by what you might call the Green Blob. And then last election, the Reform Party was the only party to sort of fight, or the only main party to fight the election on an end net zero. And then, of course, last week Kemi Badenoch came out and said basically, the Tory party is no longer committed to net zero by 2050. So I did a piece on this on Sunday where I likened it to a sort of like a Jenga tower. So Sunak took out a couple of pieces, Farage took out a few more, and then Kemi Badenoch has taken out the critical piece, and now what I call the cosy consensus has collapsed. But net zero is still there. But now it's sort of okay for polite society to talk about the end of net zero and how bad it will be. I do hope it collapses, and I hope it collapses before the economy collapses, because we cannot continue with such expensive energy. And the whole premise is that we have expensive, scarce energy, which is a recipe for economic decline.
As long as I'm doing this show, you are always welcome. You make, I mean this, you make sense to an old man about a subject that annoys me, but I don't know enough about. David Turver, energy analyst, thank you so much indeed. Author of the Egan Values Substack. Really good to have him on. Great, great, great. Coming next, it's my little old friend from LA, Kinsey Schofield. What's that accent? She's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 20 minutes to 7. Quickly cut to Kinsey Schofield. Yeah. I can't hear you. Turn your microphone.
Oh, good.
Would you not love to play out what we were talking about off air? That's genuinely true. Just so you're aware. Please don't cry.
We have our stories up. The Jeremy Kyle podcast needs to happen.
Listen, we made it onto Jimmy Kimmel. If we'd played what we spoke about just then, we'd have been on every American network. Welcome to the show, my lovely lady. How are you? Okay?
I'm great. It's been a very busy day, as I'm sure you can imagine. Meghan Markle announcing something else.
Meghan Markle has launched a trailer for her new podcast. I haven't listened to this. Have you listened to this?
I've not listened to the whole thing. I think we should do it together.
Let's take a listen to the opening line of Meghan's new podcast trailer. Go.
I'm Megan, and this is Confessions of a Female Founder, a show where I chat with female entrepreneurs and friends about the sleepless nights, the lessons learned, and the laser focus that got them to where they are today.
I genuinely hate her. I'm so sorry. I'm not. I'm trying to be a really mature. We got more views than ever when I said her programme was crap last time. Confessions of a Female Founder. What does that mean?
Well, I'm definitely not listening to her if she's the expert, because she keeps getting her trademark paperwork kicked back. I would not say that she's somebody that I would trust with business advice in any way, shape, or form. I mean, 2 weeks before the launch of American Riviera Orchard, she changed the name to As Ever. Now we're here. April 8th is when she's going to start talking to some of these people.
What people are we talking about? Because nobody likes her. Who are we talking about?
No names, no big names that we've heard so far as to who's going to sit down with her. But
Oprah.
JK, it's relentless. It's like whether she's trying to sell us a $500 trench coat or get us to listen to her podcast. I'm feeling the cease and desist is about to happen for me.
It's really interesting. You know that my old man worked for the royal family, and on a serious note, for once, he worked for the Queen Mother for 41 years because he believed it and he worked really, really hard. And he's no longer with us. I am absolutely telling you that if he was sat in this studio, apart from trying to flirt with you, he would literally say that this is... The monarchy is not struggling, but the monarchy is at a seminal moment. You've got Catherine and William, I think, doing their best to modernise, to try and inspire a new generation under enormous pressure. And this woman, blatantly, and you put it, would flog her own... Well, she's flogged her own family, isn't she? I mean, there's a picture at the weekend about her kids. There is no shame to this woman. Now, I accept that they wanted to leave the royal family, and she then became a celebrity. So everything that comes in terms of criticism and coverage on shows like this, you better suck that up, lady, because that's what happens. That's the other side of the coin. But it's this, I still believe I should be treated like a royal while slagging off everything about being a royal, whilst being as tacky as you can possibly... I mean, I thought Mrs. Simpson was shockingly bad. This woman is an outrage. This woman... I would love to know what the Ginger Whinger... What is he doing? I mean, where... Is he hiding in the chicken coop in California, terrified to show his ginger face because he's so embarrassed by his wife? This woman would sell her own... I don't know. What would she sell? I don't know. I mean, would she...
Everything. The answer is everything.
What are we going to have next? Meghan's OnlyFans page? That'll be the next thing.
You know, I wasn't going to go there, but they are saying, I saw Perez Hilton, the blogger here, say that Meghan has fully done a Kim Kardashian transformation. She's officially Kim Kardashian. And I thought to myself, the only thing that's missing is Ray J. But, you know, Prince Harry, we're slowly seeing him pushed out of the picture. You know, I don't believe that she will mention him at all on this upcoming podcast because she is so intent on being labeled a self-made female founder, entrepreneur. She's talking to these other women.
She's not. She married money to get a title. She's what did that Vanity Fair say? She's adrift from reality. Just a bleeding bit. You say she's gone full Kim Kardashian. The way Kim Kardashian became famous, sorry to tell you, but it's true, there was the sex tape. Is that the next thing? Meghan's sex tape? Can you imagine?
Well, I will say... I want to make sure that I repeat myself that I'm quoting Perez Hilton, who initially said that. But yes, you're right. That, you know, that was Kim's big introduction into the pop culture sphere. And Meghan is copying Kim and all the ways that Kim makes money and markets herself. You know, Kim has her affiliate links that you can click on. Kim does sponsor posts on Instagram. I think that's coming up next. You know, Kim's had blogs and places where you could buy exactly what she's wearing, sometimes literally exactly what she's wearing. I own one of Kourtney Kardashian's bags and Kris Jenner's dresses. You could literally buy their clothes. But I do think that it's an oversaturation. It cheapens the monarchy that she insists on continuing to use the titles. And I also think that it's despicable to tell us for the last 5 years that we are not allowed to have access to her children. But the second, which I defended, but the second she's trying to make a buck, she starts thrusting pictures of her kids out there, which she knows is only going to, perk up interest, perk people's interest.
Of course, and don't you remember when the baby, do you remember when the baby, right, the baby was born and she was carrying it out and it's all racist and the photographers. You're quite right. It is all about suiting her situation. I'm interested in him, though. We hear nothing. You're absolutely right. Let's listen to it gets better. Oh, welcome to Drive Time with JK. We can listen to the outtakes, the outro of the podcast. Would you like that? There'll be a slight gap while we drive a bus through it, but we'll have a go. Here we go.
And through it all, I'm building a business of my own and getting all sorts of practical advice along the way that I'm very excited to share with you. So join me for Confessions of a Female Founder from Lemonada Media, which, by the way, is also female-founded. Launching April 8th, wherever you get your podcasts. Let's do this, lady.
Lemonada? What is Lemonada?
It's it doesn't compare to Spotify in any way, shape, or form, but I think that that's almost a benefit to Meghan because she doesn't have the pressure to succeed the way she did when she was under Spotify. She announced this relationship a year ago and is just now executing her first project with them, which is ludicrous. What boss have you ever met that says, hey, nice to meet you, sign on the dotted line, I'll see you in a year? These people are given so many second, third, fourth and fifth chances because of their proximity to the British royal family.
When do you think that when will she be a busted flush? From an American perspective, you know these things. Is the time not approaching when tacky Meghan is finally going to be discovered as what she is, which is she's shameless, she's tacky, and she should be cut. And I don't care if this upsets people. It's like sorting out the problems with our borders. It's really simple. Strip them of their titles tomorrow. Cast them adrift. End of. They bring nothing to the royal family. They use an institution I happen to believe in. You might not, you would. Other people might not. That's your right. But these people are the worst people. They slag it and then they use that to make their money. They're a disgrace, both of them. Awful.
I'm going to break your heart right now. But as much as you and I are totally grossed out by this behavior, we are the same country that brought you Honey Boo Boo. We are the same country that brought you Anna Nicole Smith.
Yes.
I'm not sure that I think that she can continue with this because we typically reward bad behavior in this country, and so I'm not sure that she will ever hit a wall. Will she?
You think it's bad in the States? Somebody said to me the other day, you know what's got to Britain, right? In Italy they have opera. In Spanish they have flamenco dancing. In England we got bloody Weight Watchers. That's it.
Oh, no. Well, I think that this is so disappointing to me because Prince Harry and Meghan Markle could have found ways to make money that were respectful, that were endearing, and that were inspiring. And so far, the only commercial success they've had is while tearing into the British royal family. She makes a Netflix series that absolutely bombs, and Netflix says, please, sir, may I have some more? I don't understand how they continue to fail up. And it's very upsetting for people that work hard in the entertainment industry for these two people to continue to get opportunities when they have a lack of work ethic. They don't get along with people, according to Vanity Fair, The Hollywood Reporter, and Valentine Lowe. And they're so entitled.
Do you know, I love having you on. I can't. Are you coming over soon?
I will for you.
Oh, we love you. Kins, take care. Thank you so much indeed. She's so great. We love her. It's true, though, isn't it? Just disrespectful and shameless. I wish you could have seen her laughing during that break. 10 to 7.
It's something that I have worried about for years. I spoke about it during the leadership contest. It was part of my conference speech. We've got to look after people who are vulnerable. We've got to look after women and girls where they are in dangerous situations. And we also need to see justice done. And I don't think that we have seen full justice done. We had a task force 2023 that found about 500 new perpetrators. We need to make sure that we catch everyone, and that requires a national inquiry.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back 7 minutes to 7. Thanks for listening today, and thank you. I'm going to say a big thank you to the team. They never get credit. They should do. I'm going to take them out and get them drunk and leave them there. To the amazing Jodie, to the amazing Amy, the amazing Ran, and the amazing Mozzie, who, by the way, Mozzie, whatever, she's moved in. Oh, she's not here. Who's the other woman? Oh, God, Mozzie was here. Jana's back. How are you, Jana? Jana's got a very, very good voice for radio. She doesn't know, I haven't said that to her face. She said somebody over the microphone. She could be the next big thing. 0344 499 1000 was the telephone number. We're going to take a call. It's a new caller. It's Falkirk. It's Scotland. It's Monica. A very good evening. Welcome to Drive.
Hi, Jeremy. Lovely to speak with you. It was just regarding the issue of that health board in Scotland.
It's Tayside, for people who are just tuning in, Tayside NHS in Scotland have today announced that people who identify as women, even those with a beard and a penis, should be put in female wards. And the reason that this has really kicked off on this show, Monica, is because I've always been very supportive of people who are demanding women's rights, but I don't understand why these people are not louder when it comes to... I have teenage daughters. I do not want a man with a penis in a hospital bed next to my daughter.
Yeah, I concur completely with you, Jeremy. It was really, I know you're very busy and you've got lots of callers probably waiting for you, but however, it was really, I wish to reiterate the first half of what one of your earlier callers said, a lady called Anne. Unfortunately, I missed the last of her thing. People all over the place are really annoyed, and I hear that regularly from listening to your call, to your programme. But unfortunately, and particularly in my opinion in Scotland, politicians are not in the least bit interested.
But isn't that shocking if you're a politician with the SNP party when you realise that Isla Bryson case where a male rapist who raped two women, I can never say that enough, was allowed under Nicola Sturgeon's government to go to a female prison because he put a wig and a skirt on because he wanted a cushy life. It brought her down. Why doesn't the First Minister and his stupid, stupid party work out that people don't want this in Scotland?
Because they think they are intellectually superior and morally superior to everybody else on the planet. And I would contest that, particularly regarding their morality, because I deem it immoral to behave in such a manner where one part of the population are completely and utterly ignored, i.e. women, for some obscure and frankly, I'll put it gently, strange ideology of allowing men to ponce about with beards and dresses, etc.
I couldn't agree with you more. I really don't understand that there's no common sense to it. There can be no common sense to it. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's really good to have you on. Thank you so much indeed. Monica in Falkirk, a new caller, a final call of the day. I need some more tea, Joe. Stuart's in London. Stuart, you're the last caller. You're a very lucky man. You got 1 minute.
Yeah, I was just listening to you talking to Sharon Davis about a guy identifying as a woman with a beard going into a woman's ward. which is totally wrong, and I totally agree with what Sharon Davis was saying. But what I want to say is, what if a convicted paedophile identifies as a child? Would he be allowed to be on a child's ward?
Of course he wouldn't, and that's the ludicrous, mad stupidity of the decision. It cannot in any way be deemed as a responsible approach to women. It's ludicrous. Stuart in London, thank you. I'm going to slip another one in because Kev's obviously busy. Chris in Cambridgeshire. Chris, you're the last caller, I promise you that. You got 1 minute, go.
I heard Kerry Badenoch this morning. I said to you last night about politicians who say a lot of words but say absolutely nothing. That's what she did.
This is Kemi Badenoch.
Non-committal, middle of the road. I'm not going to commit to anything. We must think about this. We must think about that. She isn't going to change a thing. She's waiting to pick up the pieces.
This is really interesting, Chris, because it was a great interview by Mike, and he asked all the questions, and yet I completely concur. I think you had a woman who 9 months in, whilst everybody else is grabbing the headlines, is still trying to work out what the British people want. I'm no brain cell. I can tell you what the British people want. They want lower taxation, safer streets. They want to know that the things that they need from the state, because they've paid for it, will be there for them and not for every other bugger who hasn't paid anything. It's not rocket science. It's not difficult. It's called fairness. It might be called by some charity at home. We need to get our noses up and our heads out of wherever they are and go, do you know what? We need to look after our own at this moment. It doesn't mean we're a heartless bunch of Neanderthal idiots. It means that we're saying times are hard. We need to actually get rid of the waste. We need to get rid of the corruption, and we need to stop paying people to do